All right, y'all. Welcome to All Politics of Local America's number one political hip hop radio talk show.
Dope stuff.
Y'all know, of course, if it's the third Friday, y'all know that it is the Mayor's Forum. So, of course, y'all know that coming up shortly, once the mayor, clicks in, we're gonna bring him on live. Of course, it's the Mayor's Forum with our brother, the Honorable Mayor Raz J. Baraka, out of the great city of Newark, New
Yes.
Jersey. So we're gonna get into some things with the mayor. Uh, today there's a lot going on, and what one of the things I'm going to introduce tonight with the mayor. I'm gonna hold on to it, but I'm gonna introduce something in our conversation tonight. But we're gonna talk with the mayor in the mayor's forum. Of course, that's gonna be from 6 to 7, and then coming up at 7 o'clock. Of course, we're gonna talk to Patrice Williamson, sister from the Institute for Social Justice. We're going to talk with her tonight. Of course, we're going to have this conversation about the census. Listen, y'all, I know how black folk are, right? I know we don't want people knocking on our door or trying to get no information from us, but I'm telling you that the very services that you need, right? How do you think the mayor get those resources? He get those resources because folk are being counted. If
Right.
you're not allowing yourself to be counted and you want to get resources from your city, well, you got to get counted. So we're going to talk about that tonight when we get into a conversation with our sister Patricia Williamson, and then after that, we're going to talk to Sister Hannah Patel.
Mhm.
We'll have a conversation with her tonight. We're going to talk about voting, how to vote, and because that's important, right? I mean, for most of us, um, we've never really participated in voting by mail totally,
This is
and so
uncharted territory.
yeah, and so that's important. So we need to really spend some time tonight trying to, get into that and have a conversation about that. And may even over the next couple of weeks, I mean, just make sure folks know how to fill out those applications. So
So
we're going to talk to Hannah Patel. She's also with the Institute for Social Justice. So we're going to talk with her, and we're going to have that conversation. But of course, y'all know, as I said at the top of the show, y'all know if it is the third Friday, y'all know it is the Mayor's Forum with our brother Mayor Raz J. Baraka. Peace, man.
Peace, Ed. How you doing, man? How's everybody?
right on, right on.
I'm
It's,
good, brother. I'm trying to keep it black.
I know that's
I
right.
said I said I was going to introduce something new with you tonight, right? In terms of the Mayor's Forum. Hey, Mayor, and let me ask you this, Zaid. Was there ever a show called Conversations in Black?
Sounds familiar.
It sounds like it was, right?
Sounds familiar. Now I'm telling you, now, you want me to get any more specific? I can't. But it does sound familiar. And it sounds like I can't remember beyond that.
Do you remember anything like that, man? Was there ever a show called Conversations in Black?
Positively black.
I know that.
Positively Black, we know. Yes, that
Yeah.
channel for
I know
years.
So I'm introducing something new tonight with the mayor. It's gonna be when the mayor comes on, we're gonna have conversations in
Oh,
black.
all right. I see that. All right.
You know, but man, I gotta before we get into the nitty titty of this thing, man, I gotta say, man, I was a little disturbed today, man, with your live, man, because you were saying that our numbers were going back up.
Yeah, it's really a small tick. I gotta light them up every few times to get people bring them back to reality. What it really is the number of people that's being tested is just smaller. We need more people to actually be tested. So
Well,
our percentages are going to be high. So, for example, in 07101, there was the number was 13%, but that only represents 4 people.
okay.
So we have to get more people tested. People just have to get serious about it and keep getting tested, doing what they need to do, all those other things. So just trying to light a fire under people and make them do what they should. That's why I read the raw numbers today too, so they could see why the percentages seem high.
Right. Because I know, man, for me, one of the things that why we tune in is that not only do we enjoy all the information, but I mean, we tune in for those numbers, man. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? To make sure that all of us are playing by the same rules, and and nobody is getting out of hand and not wearing their mask. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and just doing the normal stuff, man. This is just, we just in a time period, man. People not used to doing any of this stuff, man. This is just brand new. And and our folks, we're in the rock and the hard place because, we just have a built-in distrust for what's being told to us, government, everything else. And it's completely valid that exists. In fact, it might be life-saving for some of us to have that distrust. But at the end of the day, it also, in some instances, works against us, right? Because people use that, So the really conservative right-wing forces use our distrust and target our community and feed us information because they know we have a distrust of government. They know the history. So they leverage that history, just to make us stay away from things and not do things. And because we don't do the research on our own, we just go by what the headlines say on these things. We kind of make wrong decisions sometimes. And that's why we always have to stay in constant communication with each other. My father used to say that, they beat the drum in Africa like, and then in America, we beat the drum, and then we understood what they were saying. And then they came to a point where one day they started beating the drum in Africa, and then we beat the drum back, and we play something else. And then in Africa, they beat the drum and says, we don't understand what you're trying to say.
Right.
So, it's convoluted. Our conversation with each other has been so polluted and convoluted that, we can't get clear messages to one another to keep each other safe.
Right.
Because people, they jump in there, they use, our fears, our weaknesses, and everything else against us, and that is it's just normal. It's normal. Their normal behavior, I should say, and we just have to get more astute at picking those things off, right? And talking to one another about what's happening. And this crazy old the United States Attorney General,
Yeah.
He started
William Barr.
William Barr made a comparison to the lockdown that we was going under from COVID-19, like the quarantining, to slavery.
Like he knows something about slavery, other than being a privileged master.
Like he said, it's,
oh my God,
it's like slavery. It's really, if he would have said it was like something else, then like if he would have compared that to the Holocaust, people would be going crazy. It's the same thing. We should be upset. And like if he would have said that about that, Jewish Americans should be upset. And if he compares that to slavery, it's really belittling and diminishing what our folks went through in a period of slavery, 250 years or so of chattel slavery, where we were property, right? Experimented on, used, we were property, and to compare that to a lockdown because of a virus is absurd, right? It's ahistorical, ascientific, and it shows a lack of
extremely racist.
It's very, very racist,
right,
very racist and white supremacist. And he feel like he's comfortable for him to say those kinds of things nationally because people just don't challenge him on that stuff, and he needs to be challenged, vociferously challenged.
But did you hear what else he said? Right? He also said that the principle of sedition should be used to halt protests in this country.
Right.
He also said that.
Right.
I mean, he's talking about trashing the very First Amendment, just trashing it. I mean, he's ready to accelerate what we're talking about when we talk about being at the footsteps of fascism, right? I mean, it's he didn't have a bad week. He trying to figure out how they can keep doing what they're doing to make sure that we have some bad decades coming up if we're not careful.
Oh, absolutely. That's why you got to get rid of these people, man. That guy's a dangerous, dangerous, dangerous person. These are very dangerous people. We're taking this as like, it's just another political thing, Republicans and Democrats. This is way beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
These are dangerous people. These are fascists, the most right-wing element of this country, the most violent.
That's right.
Folks, most backward element of this place that are in charge right now. And they have been trying every little trick, and it's just getting worse and worse. This thing is about uniting against fascism. That's really what it's about.
That's right.
You go back to normal struggle. Even Angela Davis, I was listening to Angela Davis, one of our revolutionary sheroes. She, I was on YouTube talking about the election and about, all this stuff, and was basically saying, she's not happy. She's not happy with Biden, and she's not happy with all of the stuff that he's done and so forth and so on for his position. But at this point in history, like we actually at this point are just trying to get rid of this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that, we struggle. We're going to struggle with Biden like that. With everybody else.
The advance of the right wing.
You have to get rid of these people, man. It creates an atmosphere where it's impossible even for you to fight for very simple things. And those guys, there's no excuse for them to be here. And the really scary thing is that people are saying he still has a potential to win, which really is a commentary on this country as a whole.
Mm.
Because at the end of the day, if you want to say that all the people who voted for Trump are not racist, what you can't say is that what you can say though is that racism is not a deal breaker for them. Even if they want to say that they're not racist because they didn't vote for Trump, which I don't believe, but it definitely says that racism is not a deal breaker, meaning that you can be racist in their mind.
All right.
Still
That's right, Mayor Baraka. You almost, what's Andrew Gilliam said? I'm not saying you're a racist. I can't remember the second part, but it sounds like that. He said, but I'm saying that.
But
not a deal breaker.
But man, so we got to talk about us though, right? Because as you know, there are a lot of brothers and sisters in our community who have already said that they're not going to vote.
One
right?
changed his mind.
Yeah, one did, right? Or said that he did, right? But we got brothers and sisters in our community who are saying that they're not going to vote, man.
Well, we have to struggle with each other, and I think that we have to sharpen our theory. We tell people to vote because people died, and that doesn't translate to folks these days. We have to tell them what's going on, where we are at this stage and what we're fighting to do. Like I said on one of my shows that I don't know if I voted for a presidential candidate in a long time. What I did do is vote against other people, right?
Right.
That's clear, and these are the things that we have to. This is a part of our protracted fight, a protracted struggle forward. You never want to put yourself in a situation where it's more difficult for you to fight. You want to put yourself in a situation where your fight is easier, right? Where the outcome is a little bit more predictable than it would be in terms of our side as opposed to the other folks. And that's really what it is at this point. You're not electing a revolutionary, right? You're electing, even when we elected Obama and I voted for him, right? But what people don't understand is he's still the president of this place.
Right.
Right. And there's a whole apparatus around him, right? That operates before and after him and in his presence, right? Mm-hmm. And it's systemic. It's been there before him and it lives after him. And as long as that exists, he is in the middle of that, right? And so there are things that happen in the legislative branch of government. There are things that happen in the judicial branch of government. I mean, Congress and all of those things are just as, if not in some instances, more powerful. There are things that they have to do, and we have to be aware of that, right? We just have to be aware of that and have a larger view of our struggle in this thing. That's all. You just have to have a bigger and larger view.
Big picture.
Yeah, you elected a Barack Obama.
Ed.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor Baraka. It's nice to see you.
Yeah.
Um, the North School Board of Education had an opportunity to really delve into the 1619 project. Have you had an opportunity to see his commentary about the 1619 project and the removal of funds if the school systems continue to teach that about the
No,
16?
who's commentary?
The president's.
Oh no, I didn't see that.
Okay.
I know that he was saying in his cabinet that he didn't want people to do those diversity classes and all that other kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But he also took that further. Remember, he just signed an executive order, man. Right? He signed an executive. Trump signing an executive order to create the 1776 commission.
Right.
He said would promote what he called what is it?
The new wave of patriotism.
Yeah, he called it patriotic education.
And the 1619 project was un-American.
And you're right. And what he did was he attacked his sister, right, Nicole Hannah Jones. He also blasted her. He said for re-examining African history and for taking a look at racism and slavery.
It's called revisionism.
Very aggressive revisionism.
Yeah, it's going to revise and make history up, man.
Yeah. So in other words, we can't go and examine the truth about what Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark shared with us. So what we've got to do is and I got to tell you something, man. And I got to tell all of y'all, the reason I was a bad student in school was because I couldn't really learn that shit. I mean, I'm being honest, man. It wasn't until I got the, like when Robert Treat High School became Marcus Garvey, and of course at that time, man, your father was a teacher in the school, and Eugene Campbell, and all of them when I was a kid. And I had to tell you, man, when we got those African classes, man, was when I began to excel as a student, right? I couldn't really learn that. And then when I got to college, even though I had to learn some of that white history, I had Dr. Gunther and all of them, man, and Dr. Wayne and all of them. I mean, so for me, it was, all of that was being turned around. Now they're talking about where you got a president who's saying he wants to create executive orders and have someone like Attorney Barr, and they want to try and get rid of 1619. And we already got a hell of a fight trying to get students to learn Black history. What the hell you think we're going to have if they go back trying to make it totally legal for us not to even teach our people that?
Well, see, we have to resist.
Yeah.
We have to organize, we have to resist. We have to stand by what we have in Jersey, right? If anybody thinks about coming anywhere near the Amistad Commission and Stephanie James Harris, we need to raise hell about that. All those places where we have control of our school systems and whatnot. I mean, people don't realize just how long it took for us just to get the schools back in this town, right? Before we could even talk about it, right? There was the state wasn't producing promoting no Amistad when they had control over our schools, and they ain't promoting it nowhere else when they should be. Right? You have an anti-racist tool that can change the whole character of your entire population in a generation if you genuinely implemented it, right? If it, where we can be and where we could go in the end is going to depend on us. Ain't nobody gonna come save us. Ain't nobody gonna help us with this. We gotta take this, make this lift, and do it right now.
That's right. That's very true.
And it's clear to see the obvious fear they have of us becoming more aware of who we are and what they will do to push back against this. Keep people. I guess that's nothing new. Keep people dumb and ignorant, and just and it's just really sad. Just this whole week, the different things that the president, when I say he, has done this week. It's just been a very crazy week in terms of him pushing back on science. I mean, this doctor says the virus is, the vaccine's not going to be ready into the latter part of next year. He says he was wrong, and I'm like, yo, dude, stay in your lane. But it's just amazing, and then the fact how much and how much airtime he gets with all of this ignorance that he promotes.
It's straight totalitarianism, straight fascism. I mean, there's no other word for it. That's exactly what's going on right now, and people don't see it, but that's exactly what's happening. You know, and we have to be very clear on what's happening. You know, the white supremacy at its highest, the kind of racialized capitalism. I mean, capitalism has always been in cahoots with racism, but at the end of the day, this kind of severe place we're in is really setting us up for a situation where there's going to be a direct collision. Right? It's unavoidable at this point, right? And I'm not even talking about physical conflict, right? I'm talking about a collision. And all of the things that are happening is even though the president himself has called for people to disrupt what's happening if the election doesn't turn his way, right? And that is creating a very dangerous atmosphere out here because people are not going to allow these folks to just do whatever it is they want to do, right? This is really setting us up for a really ugly kind of situation here in this country. And I think the rest of the world has got an eye on it and they see what's happening here. And sometimes we're in the middle of it. We can't see how dangerous the situation really is. But we're in a dangerous period.
We've had a civil war. Our struggle for so-called civil rights was anything, even in all of our folks' efforts to be nonviolent, was anything but nonviolent by virtue of what we faced. We if we're not careful, his head of Homeland Security is telling folks that they need to be arming themselves. Yeah. You know, I mean, all of this is this week. Donna, you're right. You know, I mean, so they are definitely prepping the extreme dimensions of their base for violent activity. Yeah. Right. And then I would behoove those of us who have access to some serious training and whatnot to avail themselves of it. You know, but from the ballot to the bullet, never should we ever be taking weapons off of the table. And I'm saying that to those of us who in our folly saying that voting in this election doesn't matter because Joe Biden is boring and backwards. You know, there is a difference. You know, there's a difference between extreme right and just old dumb stuff, right? That's on its way out anyway, because we're gonna get rid of that in a minute anyway, right? I mean, the future of the Democratic Party does not look like Joe Biden. You know, and the whole world sees that, and the right wing sees that. That's why they're acting so crazy.
Right, and that's why they're acting like they're acting and they're elevating this thing because they can see what's happening in this country. They can see the trend. They can see the coloring of this the population here, right? Body politic itself, the direction that it's moving in. You know, even in a cursory sense, like. I have a lot of criticism of all these corporations and everybody else who are embracing the Black Lives Matter stuff. But 5 years ago, they would have never even said Black Lives Matter. Right. Exactly. So the fact that they're saying that is proof that we're pushing, and the pushing is working, and that people are not just making declarations about individual people. So before we would put up just a guy who did police brutality and say, get him, put them on shirts, we should do all that. Now people are talking about police brutality as a systemic event, right? As a part of, that's why defund and all that is coming out, because they're beginning to look at the system and the way this thing is created. And that is the right way to look, right? To look at things systemically and not as individuals, because Trump is not in and of itself the problem, right? The problem is that he is representing a system that has been designed to heap the worst upon us and create this division. And while people are trying to change that system, these people are trying to keep the system the way it is, and in fact, elevate its worst characteristics to push us backwards. And that's that's incredibly important for us to know that and understand that. And then it takes an analysis. I was at one of Al Sharpton's events a couple of years ago in New York City, and a brother stood up, and I had to correct him. He said that Obama was like George Bush, and I had to correct that, right? Because first of all, it's not true. Secondly, it's confusing, right? And it like really gets in the way of us being able to analyze where we are. Analyze where you are so you know how far you've come and how far you have to go. Plus, if you're trying to organize the masses of people, we have to keep that in our mind, because sometimes we speak to ourselves so much. Those are the only people we know how to speak to.
Right.
And there are a bunch of people in this community who don't see what you see, and have to be explained to them in a way that they understand it. And the object is to win people over to your line.
Right.
You're trying to win people over, not isolate them or push them away. You're trying to win people over to your line.
Can't talk about the people without the people.
Yeah, people talking about the people this, but the people not even listening to them, right? You have to win people over to your line, and you do that. And I'm not telling you have to be moderate. What you do have to do is be strategic, right? That's important. And the way you communicate with folks is very, very important. The way you communicate with people and tell people what your position is. You can't scare people away or isolate them or ostracize them because they don't believe what you believe. Because finally, in the final analysis, you didn't believe what you believe all of your life.
Oh my God.
Right. So it's a process.
Y'all should have seen me before I became Zayd Muhammad. My God.
So you got to give other people the benefit of the doubt to move in their own trajectory and pace. But you have to try to educate people, and that's the key, man. We try to win the masses over to our side.
That's right. And that's organizing.
Yeah, and let's and to Ed's point, when you begin to when Mayor Baraka's father became a teacher and he began to teach, and then you started learning and hearing things that to some extent was interesting to you. Heather B on her show on series last week, she had Dr. Cook on there and a couple other people, and the question that she posed to them was, as athletes, why did you choose predominantly white college over HBCU? And Akbar gave the scenarios back then, so on. But if he knew what he knew now, he would have gone to an HBCU. And then there was a sister who was a principal, and she had gotten a full ride to Morgan. And she told the story that, she never really was a good student, but when she went down for orientation, and I'll never forget, the doctor's name must have been something like Dr. Hamilton, whose class she had went to over orientation. And she said Dr. Hamilton walked into the classroom and she had some big bamboo earrings on, and it had Dr. Hamilton spelled out, and she was like, oh my gosh. And she said she never missed her class because she immediately identified with somebody who looked like her, and it just caused her to gravitate to her more. So I think the educating our community is really important. This Amistad legislation that's been sitting on the shelf far too long, it needs to be fully implemented. And our babies now, as Raz, I remember you said last year that we're the old people now, but the young people coming behind us, that they are of a different mindset, and they know a little bit more of who they are, and they're stepping out and saying, listen, I'm not as they would say, I'm not my grandfather, I'm the grandchild. So I think we were talking about at POP last night, we have to little by little inform, educate, and even up until the election, whether it's the ballot we're talking about, having individual nuanced conversations to the person that said, I'm not going to vote. Because one of the things when I hear a person say that, I say, well, maybe you can go in there and write your name in, because in New Jersey, you can write your own name in. Yeah. So if nobody in there inspires you, go in there and write somebody's name in. But there's this election, you're voting from the federal all the way down to the school board. So you have to get involved, because when things begin to, you don't like the time school is laying out, or they serve lunch, or the garbage is being put out, you can be immediately involved in those decisions by getting involved. So we have to, little by little, empower through information.
Since you just mentioned Pop, you gotta also shout out that on October 3rd, there's going to be a major demonstration. Trump must go.
Mhm.
Right? October 3rd, Saturday, 12 o'clock. Trump must go. Major march and rally in the name of getting out to vote for the November election.
100%. And election, like you said, Don, is more than just about the president.
Right.
This is all politics are local. For a reason.
Mhm.
There's a lot of people to vote for. Plus, it's about jury duty. It's about
Yes.
judges in place, federal judges, state judges. All these folks are important. Assembly races, Senate races. We have to be involved in that.
That's right.
See, but that's why, man. Again, man, we, with all politics are local. It's, we still, are in this struggle for information, right? And that's why I think, what you do on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, on the city's website, on the city's Facebook page is so important, because what Dr. Carr says, man, from Howard University, he says this all the time. He says our problem is that we have such a low level of information, right? And that we need to be busy about the business of trying to inform each other, right? And then not just inform each other, to properly inform each other, right? As opposed to misinforming each other. Because how we do in the hood. We hear something, man, and people, by the time you get the truth of it, it done changed 5 or 6 times.
That's
right?
That's right.
And that's why when you do that Monday and Wednesday and Friday, and people hear you, they getting it directly from you, and so they're not getting it wrong. If you hear me say it, because as you know, we got people in our community, man, who come in our community and they love to take people out of context, especially you, man. You know what I mean? They love to write some shit that you didn't say and then try and explain it as though you said it. Like what?
Yeah.
And so that's why I think that we've got to be about the business of communicating with one another. And we've got to have, and I said this to you, when we were back in the studio, man, at the school. Look, man, we've got to be able to have those black conversations, right? And we can't be concerned about that. And let me give you an idea what I'm talking about. I was watching Dr. Eddie Glaude this morning, right, on Morning Joe. And they were talking about this list of all the top colleges, right? And I was saying, I know this brother gonna mention some black colleges now, right? And because this, they talking about, Florida this and Miami this and all these white schools. I'm saying, bro, you telling me you can't speak about Howard? You telling me you can't speak about Spelman? You can't speak about Morgan? He didn't, brother. And I said, wow. I said, we've been trained to even be quiet about our own blackness, right? And that bothered me, man. And I'm saying we should be able to have our conversation no matter who's around us, if it's a legit and right conversation.
Well, it's about self-determination. You have to be able to talk about yourself, your community, your family, your life, your death. That's self-determination. We fight the fight for democracy is our discussion about elections, about everything else. The simple fact that we here, because you brought us here, we deserve the right to have everything else other Americans have and not live in a suppressed and oppressed condition, because we're here. We fighting for our humanity in that because we're citizens, whether we like it or not. We're citizens of this country, and the self-determination side gives me the right to be able to say, I love myself, right?
Right.
I love my history, my culture, my broad nose and my thick lips, my kinky hair. I like cornbread and collard greens.
Right.
Music that I listen to, and I want to be represented by people who look like me, right? Who think like me, who feel like me. You have the right to do this. It's called self-determination. You don't have to be look at yourself, as Du Bois would say, through the eyes of people who despise you.
Mm-hmm. Double conscious.
That's important, right? That's important. That's why I'll be telling people today to study, these African revolutionaries, and not just their fight against colonialism, right? which was the first hurdle, because we all good at fighting our colonialism, right? It's when they won that the real problem began, right? When that neo-colonialism set in.
That's right. There you go.
That neo-colonialism set in and made it difficult. So there's always a contradiction between your ideas and the material world. And you have to struggle to bring those ideas into existence in the material conditions, right? Neo-colonialism makes it even more difficult because now we fight each other, right? So when Europeans came and stole resources from Africa, that's colonialism. When we put people in power and they gave our resources away to them anyway, that's neo-colonialism, right? So at the end of the day, we have to look at that because it's instructive in terms of how these people disrupted every single one of those countries that fought for liberation were destroyed, overthrown, dismantled, people assassinated, murdered, discredited, all kind of stuff. And most of our children don't even know about their history. Heck, most African children don't even know about their history in the own continent of those countries that threw Europeans out and tried to take power. Right? That's the same thing that we've gone over in these cities, right, in a different way. And we're trying to seize power, right? When you seize power, there's a different way to do it, right? And so the Bible says there's different tools you need when you reap, and there's different tools you need when you sow. You can't take your sowing tools to the reaping, right? And sometimes we're very good at trying to seize power, but once we get there, we are ill-informed in terms of how to not just maintain it, but exert our power, and it's difficult. It's very, 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 very difficult, particularly because there's a whole systemic thing that's pushing back against you, and the people you're trying to help don't even understand that system and how it works, so they don't understand what the machinations of what's going on, right? And they become almost an obstacle in some instances, trying to pull you out of that. And so you have to teach and educate and elevate and push and still fight against the system at the same time. That's why it's important, man. That's why I always talk about Guyana, man, and Maurice Bishop and what was going on there. The turned against each other. People started infighting with one another, right? And the infighting and the destruction with each other allowed Ronald Reagan to come up the middle and invade, not Guyana, Grenada, invade Grenada. That's all that stuff is instructive. That international struggle is instructive for us, and we need to really find time to read that stuff and study it because it'll tell you why we are in the situation that we're in today. Don't look at it as just Africa, because Africa represents a pattern that's happened internationally around this world.
Yeah.
Mayor, do you still, I know now the Congressional Black Caucus is going on, and you normally bring a group of students down. Are you doing, because they're, the sessions are just phenomenal down there. Are you doing any watch parties with the students or trying to get them to watch the sessions that are going on now?
That's a good idea. I haven't really thought of doing that. I'm off to, some of my folks that's educators and teachers and principals, try to get them to do. Now that you said that, you just gave me some assignment, but I'm gonna go ahead and jump on that because that's a good idea.
And just exposing, because I know at one point, did you have like 100 young? I remember you brought a group of young men, and I know every opportunity that we had to bring the students down there, and just for them to walk around that day and interact with the students over at Howard, just to come back and hear how inspired they were, and their thoughts, of course, got bigger, and they began to dream a lot bigger and want to do more. So yes, I want us to to continue to do that. And COVID has just kind of caused us to create new paths, and just want us to stay focused and work and continue to have our babies just see a way out. It's so funny, as we were coming in, article came up that they were concerned about high school dropouts because of COVID and how the school, because it's so up and down in terms of them returning to school and the lack of social interaction. Have you, had any discussion or have you seen any indication of that?
Of the kids?
Yes, and
I mean, of just not understanding where we are and how to get through this period of time, this virtual stuff is difficult. But our kids, they're very resourceful, man. They're used to this internet. They're used to that. We just have to, we as educators, as adults, have to be more creative and imaginative in the content and the things that we're bringing to the table for our young people. We can't just do what we've been doing in the building on the computer, right? So we have to use this as an opportunity to expand what we're doing, to bring in different elements, to do all kinds of things, to keep people's attention. It's difficult because they're already home, right? To do that, to keep their interest in what's going on. So it takes a lot more work and a lot more commitment to get us through this, right? But I believe in us, man. I think we're gonna get through this time. When I talked to my mother about it, she said, "Listen, we've been through Jim Crow, slavery, lynching, World War I, World War II. All these things. We was here, the Bo Weevil, the Ku Klux Klan. We gonna get through this too, right? And we just have to make sure as many of us can get to the other side as we can, right? And that when we get through this, we begin to learn from the experience that we went through in it."
But man, so let me ask you this, man. The time we got left, right? So let's talk a little bit, man, from a Black perspective, right? About and I'm saying Black perspective for a reason, right? Because I want to talk to all the brothers and sisters. We may not, because I hear you say this a lot, man, right? About we may not agree on everything, but that shouldn't prevent us from working together based on what we do agree on, right? And so I'm saying that in regards to us getting rid of Trump, right? And we know that, in our community, we've always had to make this decision of lesser of the evils, right? Because that, when I was coming up, I used to hear my father, say that, he would say, we're not Republican, we're Democrats, we vote Democrats. But, and then he would say, oh, we got to vote the lesser of two evils. Look at this man versus this man. And, but I'm saying where we are now, from a Black perspective, right? We may not agree, with everything about Joe Biden. And yeah, he may not totally support, all of the Black issues that we want. But the question that I would pose to us is that, do you think that we have a better opportunity of being able to push Joe Biden, or being able to push Trump and William Barr?
That's an easy question, man. It's very clear.
It should be.
For it should be, because you can see what these people are doing now. They're going all the way in the other direction, and the more we yell, the worse they get. Right? Listen, we in the middle of an unprecedented movement here in this country for a very long time. I mean, these cities are burning. Even the people out in the street look different. In '67, the people looked completely different than they look today. That's out in these streets. You know what I'm saying? So it's completely different. It's a different thing, and they still killing people in the middle of this stuff.
Right.
In the middle of it, they still killing people, and you don't get an ounce of remorse, no movement, no nothing from none of these people in power. They get worse and worse. They tightening up their ranks. They're doing all kind of things to
in the court, back with judges.
That's it. It's
we cover for them.
Nothing. You get zero. And on the other side, you do have some room. We do have room to move. And room to organize and room to push. And that's how you have to think about it. And nobody's going to give you anything. If we're not organized, even if Joe Biden is the president, you're still not going to get anything if you're not organized. You have to organize, be in an organization, as Kwame Ture always says, and push an agenda and have something that we want. We just can't be out in the street. We have to be out in the street, but somebody's got to go to the table and say, this is what we want. Somebody's got to go. After you, even when there's international struggle, when there's war, there's a point.
Man's always clear.
Table.
What are you fighting for?
That's right. You got to say, this is what we want at the end. This is what we want. And that's why I thought it was, I'll put that thing out because I want people to keep in their mind that we want something, right? We don't just want people to stop doing stuff to us. We want something, right? We want something. We don't just want a kinder and gentler police department. We want something, right? We want a lot of things, right? Reparations is one of them, right? We want a lot of things. This is what we want. And we need it, right? And we need to be pushing it in a very affirmative kind of way, not just in a defensive way, in a very affirmative kind of way, in an offensive, unapologetic, and an offensive strategy that says this is what we want, and we want it now. This is what we want, and that's where we have to be. You got to make them do it. You got to make them do it. You got to make them.
Mm-hmm. Right, and and so the thing is, man, you absolutely right. But we struggling with our own brothers and sisters to say, man, what we need to be doing is doing exactly that, organizing. But when you say it's an easy answer, I can tell you, to us, it's an easy answer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some of our brothers and sisters who are on a conscious level, I'm battling with. You know what I mean? To say, we ain't get nothing. We don't get nothing. No, we ain't gonna do this. Hell, you ain't getting nothing now. And this guy definitely pushing back, and you can't even see him stacking the deck on you with federal judges. You're not even seeing it. And if you listen to what Barr is saying, I mean, I heard this guy say today that he, it wasn't today, but I heard him say a couple of days ago. He said he's the total authority when it comes to the law. Right.
Right. On top of everything else he said. They got to go. They got to go.
Yeah, he's right. This guy's crazy. And these are lunatics that are in charge of this, man. And clearly lunatics. At the end of the day, it's easy. Today is easy to say you conscious, man. So it's thrown around very, very lightly these days, man. So is activism. So is all the people call themselves activists. It's very easy to say that stuff. Back in the day, a couple years ago, you'd actually have to have read something. You go up to somebody and say you was conscious. You'd actually have to prove that.
Oh my God.
Like, you have to have a conversation with somebody to say that, and people say, "Oh, this backward Negro, he don't know what he's talking about." Right? You have to. We had to struggle with people in person. We didn't have the luxury of putting fake names up with fake pictures and trolling. You have to go to a rally, to a conference, to a meeting, and deal with the polemics, right? And struggle with people around real issues. And that's what we're missing. People get these titles, they just don't. They have not studied or read anything, or actually really done anything to afford them the titles that they're giving themselves, right? And there are a lot of people who. And so because we've romanticized the movement that came before us, right? People don't know that it was dangerous.
Yes, sir.
And that all of these that you have today, right? These people were wiped as dangerous, right? I know children of these folk because I grew up in these circles. And a lot of these children are hurt from growing up in those situations. They're psychologically hurt, they're emotionally hurt. Some of them don't even want anything to do with the movement at all because their families were attacked.
Right.
Physically.
This wasn't some, kumbaya, we gonna go out. We didn't have the luxury. These people could go out in the street and burn buildings and throw stuff through windows and take a torch.
No consequence.
Take a torch to a Wendy's. These white people coming from everywhere, these community suburbs, coming to your community, taking a torch to a Wendy's. Negro, they would have your whole family in jail.
Right.
They arrested my father and read a poem in the courtroom to prove his guilt based on a poem he wrote. He didn't burn down no Wendy's.
Right.
Burn down no Wendy's.
Right.
Fired at anything.
And shoot guns. I know what they read.
You know what I'm saying?
Come on.
Yes, man. People's houses got broke into. They followed people. They tapped their phones. They created division in their family. They created wars, physical war between organizations in our community, forced us to turn guns on each other, killed us, poisoned us.
Right.
That's what the political prisoners is now. We've been fighting for political prisoners for God knows how long because these people killed and attacked us. It's just real. And that's why people romanticize all the civil rights movements. People died. Like, they didn't die from sickness and old age. They were murdered.
Right.
People were murdered. But my father used to explain to me, he said, listen, these people killed King, Malcolm, both Kennedys in less than 10 years.
Think about
it. People.
That's 5 years.
They killed these people right out. Boom, just killed them. This is what you're dealing with, man. And you're dealing with it on another level because of the internet and all this other stuff is involved. But these people are dangerous people, and never get it mistaken. These people are dangerous to the nth degree. They're dangerous. COINTELPRO is real. If you don't know about COINTELPRO, you should read about it.
Thank you.
It's very
Thank you.
Mayor Baraka, I'm gonna do a real fast couple of questions because our time with you always goes so fast. I want we're the follow up. The next conversation we're going to have is about census, and census is winding up. How is the city of Newark doing? And I also wonder if you got a pen. I'll put it in the notes. But on 9 at the ALC on the 22nd, Principal Kafele is on the agenda, and then yeah, there. And he's speaking at the Congressional Block. He's doing a session by himself called "The Power in Us" from 6 to 7:15 on the 22nd, and then on the 19th, which is tomorrow, Taraji from how y'all went to school together. She's doing. She has a whole thing on mental health that advocacy, and she's doing that on tomorrow, 9/19, and that's tomorrow at 1:00 in the afternoon. And then so I asked you about the census, and when we talk to you next month, it will be the deadline for voting will have passed, and now we know persons that are on parole and probation that they can vote this time. Are you doing anything specifically in the city of Newark to let population that persons on parole and probation, because unfortunately the parole board is not doing it, and we shouldn't. I would hope they would do it, but what are we doing to let the people know they can vote? And we also have to get the word that in New Jersey, as of last week, you can register to vote online. I'm sorry, that's a lot, sir, but I just wanted you to talk about that.
I try to push it as much as I can, even on Facebook Lives about parole and probation to get folks to vote. We're doing some voter registration. I know the NAACP is going to work out with the New Jersey Devils organization and all of them doing something the arena, because the National Basketball Players Association with J.R. Smith from the Lakers is created that opportunity for people to vote at the Prudential Arena and doing voter registration and organization there. So we're pushing that. Every voter registration thing we do, we're pushing the idea that if you're on parole and probation, you can vote. I'm glad I testified before the committee down there in Trenton, and it came into fruition. That's a great opportunity for a lot of folks, and they shouldn't miss that opportunity at all. Right now, in terms of the census, we're at the self count. We're at 49% in terms of the self count. That doesn't include the people coming around knocking on the door from the census takers, the numerators coming to get the census from you, which we're close to 80% on that. But we got to stay at it. And I think that if the courts, again, voting, if the courts rule that this Trump thing is not correct by stopping it early and letting it go to the end of October, I think we'll be okay. We're still pushing in case we lose that, then we only have up until September the 30th, which is only really a week or so away. And we'll know that in the next couple of days what the court ruling is going to be that allow us to keep counting, keep pushing until October the 30th. So that's an important ruling that we need. And that's why people appointing these judges, these federal judges, is extremely important to us. I mean, even the the state Supreme Court, right? Because we have those people up there. They voted against the CCRB. That's why it's important to put the right here who vote some people in there who are leaning towards our side, at least a little bit, that we can convince them to do something so they didn't have their mind made up before they even got in there that this is something that they won't do. We just have to look at it in that holistic picture. But we're working hard on the census. We're pushing hard, and we're pushing hard on this voter registration stuff.
Right on. Right on.
So you know, man, the thing is, man, is that, I get, all what you said, and in terms of, how hard we got to struggle with some brothers and sisters who we call conscious and that kind of thing. But I've got to say, man, I think that, when we talk about these people being crazy, in my mind, I think we're in a fight for our lives right now, right?
Yeah.
And when you talk about somebody lining, because he's already, the Senate has already appointed like 50 federal judges, and these cats are under 50, right? Which means they're planning these guys to be there long after Trump is gone, and long after a lot of these guys are dead, right? And so and you talking about not, we can say on one level, yeah, they may be Republicans, but what we can really say is that these people are downright racist, if not Klan directly, and that their goal is to stop any progress legally that we may make, because you got to think scientifically about look at what Trump did. I mean, this guy scientifically went and took over the whole legal structure of the country by appointing Barr, so that no matter what was going against him legally, this guy, could back up everybody, and then back up every other the police department or every other agency, the FBI, the CIA, back everybody up because he got some fool with him. But I'm saying for our people, we need to be able to realize that, that down ballot is more important to us than voting for this ticket, because for us, all politics are local. Without us being registered to vote, we don't get a Mayor Baraka. Without us being engaged, we don't keep Baraka in office, right? We and without us doing the census, we don't get the monies that we need in the city of Newark to be able to help our people. We got to educate our people, especially some of these conscious brothers and sisters, to get it. Because I had to tell you, man, I'm tired of having some of the fights I'm having with them.
And I don't think you should get the last piece. I don't think you should be. I mean, we need to struggle with each other, man. That's number one. And some of these guys are never going to get it, but you have to struggle with them. And the purpose of these kind of struggles really is to educate other people. And like I said, our job is to win the masses over. We can't get put ourselves in a bubble. And I learned that just by running in elections, right? I've been with Black Nia for so long. We used to meet and talk to each other. You started to think that everybody in the community believed what you was talking about every Friday at 7:00 until you go to a PTA meeting. So you start knocking on doors. Then you start to see their well-meaning people who want what you want, their kids to be, don't want their kids in jail, want a decent education, want self-determination and freedom for themselves, who don't see it the way you see it. And it's important for you to win them over and get them to defend the things that you think are right. And those are the people we really should be trying to win over, man. Those are the people we're trying to win. These are the people that are out here trying to figure this thing out. We have to go to them and help them understand, because they're not crazy, right? And they're smart enough to understand what's right and what's wrong. And I had an argument with one of the brothers you're talking about. He was saying that people vote for the Democratic Party because they duped. And I used to have to tell him that my grandmother wasn't duped, right? My mom voted for some of them, and she's certainly not duped, right? She knows really what she's doing, right? She does it deliberately and purposefully and knows what she's doing. She wasn't tricked by Clinton, and she's not being tricked by Biden. You understand what I'm saying? She's doing this as a matter of self-defense and self-determination. That's what she's doing it as, an opportunity for her to struggle another day. And it's important for us to educate people, our folks even, who are in the so-called leadership of these positions, the conscious folks, to understand that we have to continue to argue and struggle with one another without being disagreeable.
Right.
And that's the problem. We think because we don't agree with everything each other says that makes us the enemy. And that's just not true. My dad used to say we have to be as sophisticated as Congress. Those guys get in there and fight like cats and dogs, but when it's over, they come together against you. Right? They be like, well, this is the law, right? And then it's over. Then they go back to Congress and argue some more. When they lost that election, what's my man who ran for election, who wrote with the hanging chads in Florida, and they saw all of the flaws, but instead of challenging the election, he was like, we cannot destroy the process. So the idea of this thing is bigger to them than the struggles that they have with one another. And that's how sophisticated that we have to be. We have to understand that the idea of our freedom, the idea of our collective struggle is bigger than our individual differences that we have with one another. And
that was Bush and Gore.
We should struggle with each other.
Right.
We should. I mean, we don't want to be ultra liberal. We want to struggle with each other around what's the right line, because you get closer to the right line through struggle. But we always have to come back to unity, because our fight with our enemy is the greatest contradiction that exists today than our contradictions that we have with one another.
Well, there it is, y'all. Hey, man, we're out of time, man. I want to say thank you, brother, for coming on during the Man's Forum and having this Conversations in Black with us, brother.
Yes,
I
sir.
appreciate it, man. Every time you leave, man, my spirit is always fed, man. So I appreciate it, my brother.
Yes, sir.
And
All
Mayor, before you leave, I want you to know, I don't know if you've been paying attention to the chat. The chat is on fire. People were very appreciative of the words. So,
okay. I don't get to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, y'all.
All right, man.
Right.
Thank you, my
All right.
brother. Peace. All right. So, Donna, we have
This is ready.
Patricia that's going to be coming up next, right?
Now
Donna,
you muted.
Mike muted.
She's steady
Sorry
talking.
about that. I know. I just you can't
I
get
saw
to
your lips, but
Yeah.
I didn't hear
Right.
you. So you
Yeah,
want to
we-
go on and introduce our sister since she's on now?
So we have Patricia D. Williamson from the Institute of Social Justice with us. And if you remember, as we were preparing for the census, she came in and she gave us a bird's eye view of what has happened in the past, what our goals should be for the future. And now that things are winding up, she's going to come and tell us that the first shall be last and the last shall be first. And everybody that was lagging in the last census, that was 2010, you're going to tell us that all of our urban areas are at 99.8%, right, Patricia? And that you only got 2 more doors to knock on. Is that what you come to tell us today?
Your door and my door, right? Mhm. Well, I wish I could.
We
I
believe
wish
in
I
prayer.
But we are absolutely, and we're going to need prayer. So good evening, everybody. It's so good to see everybody.
Good
I will tell you, out of all my interviews, this one was still the most fun. I absolutely enjoy your team, and I even had my favorite song, and I was just ready today. But I know we've got a lot of people a lot of things to cover today. So let me just say, Newark is doing a very good job. The Newark Complete Count Committee has people from all demographics, all walks of life. Everybody is trying to really get involved and get people counted in the census. So definitely I want to give Newark credit, because it's not for lack of trying that, the numbers are where they are. COVID-19, the pandemic really took us for a loop. I mean, there's really no way around it. A lot of people were impacted either by having COVID-19, or they were essential workers, or they knew people that passed away, unemployment, all of those things wrapped up together over the last, those first 2 or 3 months when the census rolled out. Nobody was thinking about the census. And so the numbers just stagnated. But now, honestly, what I think happened was after the death of George Floyd, that's when everybody just rose up and said, well, okay, wait a minute, Black Lives Matter. And so when we actually thought about how that looks, Black lives do matter. And one way you can show that they matter is two ways you can show that they matter. One is to register to vote, and the other one is to complete the 2020 census. Let people know that you count, you matter, and you exist, and you're here. And so from that point on, and also since the numbers of the COVID-19 went down a little bit, we were able to go outside and have conversations with people. We couldn't have the big festivals, but we certainly got outside, gave people masks, and had conversations, tried to work down the myths. So where we are today, we are, well, I say that we're 13 days away from the last day of the census, which has an asterisk because I'll tell you in a minute, maybe we have a little more time. I say 13. Other people are saying 12, but I say 13 because if I can get you to take it today, today counts as much as any other day. So 13 days to take the census. And as of today, Newark is at 49.0. So 49 on the dot in terms of self-response rate. And that also includes the amount of households that have been counted by the census, because at this point they are coming by and knocking on doors.
And is 49 good?
Well, in 2010, we got Newark up to 51.3%. So we're not where we were at 2010. So we want to at least get over the 50% mark, which I think you will, but then try to get to 51.3. So at least you have what you had 10 years ago. But really, I mean, New Jersey is up at 68. So we really would like to see as much as possible, because the more people that respond, the more households that respond, the more funding that you're going to receive for your services. So right now you're working at right about half of the funding that you need for all of your services. Wow. So if you think of it that way, no, it's not a good number, but we want to, because, don't want anybody to be discouraged, but we do want you to keep pushing for these next few days. There's no time to sit.
Are the people opening their doors, or are the people, letting the census people in and are willing to give them the information? How's that going?
I've heard a mixture. I've heard some people are, and the Census Bureau is coming forward with proper, PPE and identification so people know that they are with the Census Bureau. But there are some people that are not trying to take the census. And we knew that was coming. So that's why we're trying as advocates to have these conversations and let people know, hey, you really need, you and your community need to take the census. So they're not opening their doors, or they're opening the doors, letting the dog out, things like I've heard this. So, things like that are not good. And since a lot of the people from the Census Bureau are from the community, please don't do that to your neighbors. Don't let the dog out on somebody. They're just trying to do that.
Let the dogs. Don't let. This is not the appropriate time to let the dogs out.
Organizing on the streets of Newark in 1980, doing census work.
Patricia, so the first part of my question is, how effective do you think, because there was this whole tactic of fear, and we know we have undocumented persons in our community, but this is supposed to be a very safe process. It's just for the sake of counting people. So how effective was that fear? And if persons are looking in a computer or listening to us or looking at us right on YouTube, Facebook Live, or the different platforms, and they want to do it, but they're a little fearful, can you speak to that? So how effective was that fear, and what can you say to make them feel a little secure right now?
Sure. Well, first, yes, it was extremely effective. It was extremely effective. We're still telling people that the citizenship question is not on the census, even though the Supreme Court forced it off the census in July of last year. But by then, the damage had been done. So there's a few myths that we took. I walked before the pandemic. We asked some people in Newark who said they absolutely were not taking the census. Why they weren't taking the census? So then we could kind of talk and work on the myths. So out of those myths, I'll just name a few of them so we can debunk the myths. I just debunked the first one. There's no citizenship question on the census. Another one is, where does your information go? So a lot of people think if they put in their information that it's going to go to the IRS. And if they didn't finish their taxes, then they're going to, the IRS is going to come after them. Or if something else is in the background, they're going to get arrested, or ICE is coming. And none of those are related to the census. The Census Bureau everyone is under oath to take your information, and they basically put it in a lockbox in the Census Bureau. All they want is your statistics so that they know how many people to send money for and to create that representation, political power and representation. It does not matter that you're staying somewhere you're not supposed to. So it's not going to go back to the landlord. It's not the benefits that perhaps your partner has and you're staying there. They're not going to get impacted, but they do need to know you're there. Some people count just the adults in the house and not the kids. That one's dangerous, because then the census will say, well, we counted that house. But if you don't count the kids, if the kids are 2 years old right now and they're not taking up a whole lot of space, when they turn 12, 10 years from now, when this happens again, they will certainly be eating your food, all into the services, any kind of services that the schools provide for before care, after care. And, if you have overcrowded schools and things of that nature, it's because the young people were not counted. It's free. Some people thought you had to pay to take the census. If that seems to come your way, that's certainly a fraud. Wow. So all you do is you take the census. You either do it online, on the phone, or you put it in the mail. And in the mail, it's already set up so that it's free. So then these were actual things that people said that they were concerned. And so we just want to let people know that it is safe, it is important, and it's easy. 10 minutes, it is roughly, for 10 questions for 10 years.
So Patricia, let me ask you this. So are we still having this sort of information deficit? Because what you just stated was right. So most for somebody even to think that you got to pay to take the census, I don't know where the hell that comes from, right? And who believes that? And first of all, who would say that to discourage folks? And then, do folks really understand in the community, that the way they or we get our services is based on having an actual count of the people in that community, particularly for all of the services that we run to, and especially now, that you got a black mayor in the city of Newark. People run to City Hall left and right for everything.
Mm-hmm. And they need to know.
How do we get that?
Yeah, and it's certainly not for lack of information from the mayor, because the mayor all through the pandemic, when we had nothing to do but sit inside, as we sheltered in place, he recommended that we take our census. And so some people did. And like I said in the beginning, it's not for lack of people trying to get to the people that need the information. But I will say one thing we have to remember is that not everyone has access to the internet. And so while we're here having this conversation, some of those people that may have those same thoughts aren't really able to hear this. And so that's why, while the weather was good and the pandemic levels came down a little bit in New Jersey and in Newark in particular, we were able to go out, go to the church parking lots and go, there were a couple of caravans that came through. So anytime we had a time to actually sit and talk with someone in several languages, not just English, but several languages, that's when we were able to get the households counted one by one. But that information, those myths, I mean, they came from people that really, there's another one, they thought that only people whose names were on the lease are the ones that have to take the census, or people that are over 21. And we're saying, no, everybody needs to take the census. Citizens, non-citizens, employed, unemployed, old, young, everybody.
See, I think that a lot of, what's wrong with us is that because white folk in this country have done black folk so dirty, right? And particularly, when we give them information, right? They turn around and use that information against us, right? That's why even, for some of our folk, when you tell them, about their paperwork or trying to help them with certain things, they've had people turn around and actually mess up their paperwork. And then if you got people, like you said earlier, who may be, living, let's say, for instance, somebody living with their grandmother that isn't supposed to be living with their grandmother, right? And they're afraid, right, to be able to do that. That's why I think that with us, with information, we've got to be able to, have and what you just said about the church parking lot. That's why I think pulling in all of these preachers and mosque leaders and being able to say to them, if they have some kind of, email network or something, be able to say to them that, look, man, we need y'all to help us too, and we need to get the proper information, because nobody know how to gossip better than black people, right? So we need to get that gossip thing going correctly, especially amongst them church folk.
If we can get it right. Now I see that Reverend Roundtree, I see right here that
she trying to call it out. Yes,
she lifted up the census and Newark count. So this is the English number that you can use to call, and they will just tell it to you. They'll just ask you those questions, and you can simply answer them on the phone. The clergy has a very active role across the state in making sure that parishioners know that the census is important. And so there is a statewide group called the Interfaith Action Movement. I believe I had the name right. And Reverend Roundtree is a part of that. And under Governor Murphy, there's Reverend Derek Green, who hosts the Census Family Sundays. And so they've been every Sunday since the beginning of September. There's another one coming up in 2 days. They have Facebook Live, they have Zoom, and they also go and sit in parks in different cities. I know I think Newark was already covered. And so we are all trying to get together, not just churches, of course, the mosques and the temples, and we're just trying to get the word out from trusted messengers. That's the other thing. One time we were sitting in a park, and we had someone that was a very hardened person, not about 49, 50, who had lived in that city all his life. And it took about 20 minutes to change his mind. But once he felt heard, we talked to him, and then he decided that it was a good idea to go ahead and take it. But what we needed him to do was tell the people that look up to him.
Right.
Because that's where the trust starts to build again. There's a lot of fear. I mean, there are certainly people feel risks because of the way we've been treated in the past. Right. But we also have to balance that with the risk of not being counted. Right. So I said, we're trying to get Newark up to 50%. Can you imagine 50% of the funding you're supposed to get? What kind of roads and bridges are you going to have? What kind of the schools, the emergency services, the businesses that are considering coming, but maybe they won't because they don't think there's as many people there, and the political representation that.
And Patricia, breathe right, stop
Okay.
right there. Let me get a utopia situation. If
I
we,
want to hear this.
You want to take us back to the two doors left to knock, right?
if we did 100%, would that give us more representation? Absolutely, or maybe.
Well, the 100% would give you the funding that you deserve.
Right.
The 100% in terms of the representation, it gives you the base for proper representation. You still have to go through the congressional and the state legislative redistricting process, which my colleague Henry Patel will talk to you about next. But you need to at least have the proper numbers, because if you don't, then they're going to think, oh, well, we don't have this many, so we can just take this part of the district and just move it over.
So it gives you the justification, but it doesn't make it automatically happen. You have to fight for it, and then on the other end, if we decrease in numbers, we may lose more representation.
Right.
I think Newark is a big I think congressional districts have been brought together as a result of the numbers decreasing.
10 years ago, we lost a seat.
Okay.
10 years ago, we lost a seat. Now, I will say there was some news out today or yesterday, and I was just reading an article. We're not in the top 5 states or so to lose a seat, but that does not mean we do not need to go ahead and get our numbers right.
Right.
It just means we're not at the top of the line in terms of gaining or losing a seat.
Okay. And how does the census affect our hospitals? Does the numbers have any effect on us having hospitals in our community or not having hospitals?
Well, so anything that has federal dollars attached to it is going to be impacted. So yes, your hospitals and any of the services that they provide are going to only have the amount of funding to do that based on the numbers from the census. So if you look at what we just went through in terms of our emergency services, everything that we have was based largely on the numbers from the 2010 census.
Okay.
And so, we know our numbers are more, if nothing else, if they're not more numbers, at least we know we're more diverse now. So what we do want to do is just get those numbers as high as we can, so that prayerfully nothing like this happens again in the next 10 years. But it may take another year or two for us to get through this whole thing. And we do want to make sure that the hospital services, the supplies, anything else that is on the federal level that comes our way, we want to get what we want to get what we deserve.
And one last question.
You get
You got an echo.
I got feedback. I'm sorry. Had there been no, I'm sorry about that, COVID, what would the normal end date have been?
That's a good question. I believe the end date was June 30th.
It would have been June 30th. That's a good day. That's my dad's birthday.
Okay.
So with that, okay, so COVID happened.
Can I tell you a little bit?
Yep.
Yeah, so that was something I did want to circle back to. So June 30th was when, if nothing happened, that's roughly when we should have been finished. I think that's so then when COVID did happen, then the date started to slide. So then it was July 14th. Then we went out to August something. Then we went to October.
Right.
And then all of a sudden we came back to September.
Right.
So here's what I saw. So in May, when the census said we need to push everything out 4 months, the White House administration said, okay, that makes sense. So they agreed to present that to Congress. July. So two things happened. One, there was an executive order that came from the White House that said non-documented people should not be counted in terms of reapportionment. So that was just in the last week, that was called unconstitutional. So we'll just leave that one there. But at the same time, while people weren't really looking, the White House also rescinded its request for an extension from the census. So that means that per the Constitution, the Census Bureau has to turn in everything by December 31st, 2020. So when they saw that, well, if you're going to do this in October and you only have 2 months instead of the 4 that you asked for, that's not a lot of time to analyze everything. And so they pushed it back, my opinion, so they pushed it back. But that doesn't give them the time to reach the hard to count and hard to reach people, which are mostly people of color, and get an accurate and complete count. So what we're doing now, the Institute and about 200 other national and state leaders, organizations, we endorsed a bill that just came out this week called the Census Deadline Extension Act. And I wanted to put that here. I'll try and put it in the chat, but it's S4571. And I'll put that in the chat. But S4571.
Or text it to me. Yeah, and I'll get it up. Okay.
And HR 4571 and HR 8250. So that's on the House side. So we definitely can make some calls to our senators and to our Congress people and make sure that they support that, because that will restore the extension so that instead of December 31st, it going to the president, it will go in April when they've had time to actually analyze the data. Because the data they're getting, it went through a pandemic. So it's not like it's going to be an easy year to try and put this together. They're truly going to need the time. So that is something that we're looking at, and we're certainly hoping that people can support that bill and get our Congress people. See, now that's why it would have been nice to have more than 12 people down there, because now, when you need as many people as possible to support it.
Okay. And I think that was so there's a possibility, because the fight is still going on, that at the last hour, the extension, is there a possibility that we may be extended out to October 31st?
There is a possibility. So something else that's going on, there's a person in there's a judge in California with the last name Loh, L-O-H, who told the census, stop winding down. That's essentially what she said. Stop winding down, as if it's going to end on the 30th. They were supposed to have a hearing yesterday, but the Department of Justice wasn't ready. So now they're going to have it next Tuesday. And based on that decision, we'll find out whether we're really going to have counting stop on September 30th, or if it's going to go out to October 31st. So that's going on its own. But be mindful that what you have on the screen is equally important, because if we do get to move that all the way out to October, that's great in terms of getting the count. But if we can't get this bill passed, then there's only 2 months for them to analyze all this data. So we really need to do both. We need to encourage the movement of the end date for getting the full count. And then we want to get this bill passed so that we can actually have the accurate count. And what we're really hoping is that this bill can move into something bigger, like the stimulus package, or something that will actually, that will get signed and move on, so that it's not a question of it being a standalone, and we'll wonder whether the president's going to sign it or not.
And why I have, we're out in the community, we're talking to people, and we have, I've spoken to persons who are employed by the census, and and Joe Madison actually did a great show the other day, and he had census workers call in from all over the US. And this constant confusion, and we know that it's on purpose with them. Like one gentleman out in Georgia said he showed up for training and there was nobody there to train him. Right here locally, had a local person say that there was no more, that Orange was fully counted, so there was nothing else to count. What is it? Is there anything? I mean, we know that Craig Stanley is working in our community and he's encouraging persons to document. But this sabotage, I mean, I'm sure this administration is trying to sabotage because they're looking at the more political portion of it, of decreasing maybe representation in our communities. But this is hard. I mean, the frustration that has to be with the tenured census workers and them trying to, get the job. Once we, get the job done and their hands are tied because it's just this continued sabotage. Have you heard a lot about that?
I have heard some stories, and they are frustrating. And I feel for the census employees, their career, some of the people that have just been hired, but also those career employees that just want to count numbers. They just want to do their job. I took some of the concerns that I heard, I took them to the regional director of the New York region of the Census Bureau just to let him know about them and just to see what he said. And so in terms of Orange in particular, at the time we spoke, it was, they had a 51.1 self-response rate. I know it's higher now because that was probably about a week ago, but there are some numbers that are out there that are confusing. So that self-response rate is one, that is the self-response rate in terms of, how many households have been counted. But there's another number that's floating out there that's talking about the area census offices and how many places they visited, and that number is much higher because they've visited all of these different places at least once. That doesn't mean that they've necessarily counted everyone yet. So you're going to hear, you might hear there's a 51.1 self-response rate, and then you're going to hear something else that says, oh, well, but we're 70% or 75% done. That's not that's not accurate. But what the Census Bureau regional director said, we will continue to knock on doors until we are 100% complete. And to his quote, we have the resources to do it and are hopeful these households will open their doors to complete the census. So he's optimistic. I know there's confusion. I do hope that people will hang in there because I know there's so many different levels of direction coming out right now that it's hard to know, you stay, you leave. Something else that I know, they've had to move some people out of the community to fill in some of the spaces for other communities. That does happen. But they will continue to move the resources to the areas they're needed the most. But again, he said that he doesn't have any concerns about not having enough resources. So apparently we still have the Census Bureau in full force across the state and particularly in our hard to count areas.
So Patricia, let me ask you this question before we run out of time. So, one of the things that, and this, and everybody know this about us. Excuse me. The Hudlin brothers once made this statement. They said that Black folk got entertainment like Arabs got oil, right? And since we are an entertainment people, and you just said y'all have the resources, I know that the mayor, one of the things he was doing was that he was giving out a $50 gift card for 150 people who came down. The first 150 people who came down to do the census. My question is that if y'all have the resources and all we have is another 15 days or so, to do this realistically, because they have not said as of yet whether we're going to get that other month. If those resources are still available, have anybody thought about getting in touch with, say, some DJs or some entertainers or something,
Right.
and putting something together? Because if black folk hear a bunch of music going on, we're gonna follow that damn music, and we're gonna shake our behind to where that music is going.
Absolutely,
Right?
absolutely.
And do something like that where you set up a DJ in each community, right? And then set up tables, where you guys could be, and people giving out masks and educating people and telling people why they need to be able to do that, and then maybe have some giveaways on the table, right? Mm-hmm. As an incentive to get people to come and do the census, because it's that important. And I'm saying if the mayor had $50 for each person, then I'm saying y'all could put something together like that and maybe give away, something in the community.
That's a great idea. I mean, that starts right there. There are activities going on across the state like that. I know Craig Stanley's group has something going on. Not this weekend. I think it's next weekend. Mm-hmm. And which will include some music and food. I always say, if you have food and music, to your point, you will have some people. And I also what I mentioned before in terms of the Census Family Sundays and those parks that are on Saturdays, they're also starting. They have food giveaways, music. Now that's more of the is the gospel type, but it's still something that's outdoors. Mm-hmm. There's also some activities that are going on. I know in another city. So sometimes it's not just for the census, it's a general one, like back to school. There's a lot of back to school activities that are going on where as they have, they're giving away backpacks and things of that nature, they will have a census table, and they'll also make sure that the census material is being given away as well. And then I even know one where they're having a cigar, I don't even know what it's called, a cigar show or something like that, where they're bringing in people, but they're also going to have cigars, and they're going to have census recruiters, census representatives there as well. And that one's actually really good, because one of the demographics that's very hard to count are Black men between 18 and 34. So if you get people that also like to smoke cigars and they're coming in, now you can have a conversation with some people that may not have taken the census. Right. So you want to also look at that as well and see, okay, what is it that people like to do? Have another caravan, have an ice cream truck at the end. Right. That worked out very well in New Brunswick. So little things like that will help people in these last few days as we count down.
Yeah, I tell you, I've got this vision of, doing a census soul train line.
There we go.
Right? You got, because of COVID, you get a DJ and get one per group, would get the sisters on one side of the street, the brothers on another side of the street. They don't stand, within 6 feet of each other, right?
Yes, that's you got a social distance.
Right? And you distance them, and everybody got on a mask, and you got the hottest jams going, and they dance down the census line. After you do the census, dance down the census line to the end of the census line, you get some sort of prize.
And you can do that, because since you can do the census on your phone, you can do that before you head down the line.
That's what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
And at the end of that, and I'm saying, if that music is banging enough, listen, our people, they be like, yo, what I got to do to get in that line, baby?
That's right. Well, you got to take the line.
And
That's
man,
exactly what you have to
hey, I already took the census. You get me in that line. Yeah, baby, let me get in that line. You know what I mean?
proof.
I'm
So,
trying to tell you, listen, you got with our people, since we are an entertainment and music. Baraka was just talking about
Visual people.
what
We're
he
very
said.
visual, yeah.
Remember what he was just saying a minute ago, Zahid, when he said his father was talking about how black people communicated with the drum,
That's right.
You know, and
All
we
have
playing this music, we
sound
playing this music.
Yes.
That is still our existence as African people, because the problem is we can't speak our native tongue. But I can tell you one thing: if somebody throw on the sound of Philadelphia or the sound of Motown, right, that music is gonna move the hell out of all of us, right? You let them put "Ain't No Stopping Us Now" with all that we've been through.
Well, that's my high school's theme song.
Man,
1979.
yeah, I'm saying. I mean, think about when Obama used to play that song by Stevie Wonder every time he was done. Man, that inspired everybody.
that's
You know
right.
what I mean?
That's right.
And
What
I'm
we need is
saying
some
we
good
are music
inspiration.
people,
You're absolutely right.
and we can be creative. And then if we teach them while we're doing that, saying the reason we need to be counted, y'all, is because all them services y'all need that y'all run into City Hall for, where y'all think the money coming from?
That's right.
And now, once the people educated, the next 10 years, it ain't gonna be like this, because now the information is gonna be out there, and the
That's
truth
right.
is gonna be out there, right? And then, if everybody got the truth and they know, yo, man, this thing is actually gonna help us. These people ain't gonna come and throw you out of your girl's house. Hey, look, man, ain't nobody looking for you, man, because you owe child support. We got you, right? Because all of this stuff is what's going on in our community, and this is the kind of stuff that black folk are afraid of.
Yes, that's it. So we got to debunk the
We're
myths.
very
Edward, you said it all. We have to debunk the myths. We have to take out the myths, put in the proper information,
The truth,
and
yes.
add some music to it. Add a little fun to it, so that we can,
Yes.
just make it a part of our culture.
Right.
Yeah, I think there was a group of students, and they may have been from Jersey City, that actually did a rap about the census. I have to go find that. I think it was. I'm gonna go look for that.
I'm sure that's out. Absolutely.
But we brought your colleague on, Ms. Patel, and we were speaking earlier about the census, and if we had in the 13 days, and we got 100%, do we get 2 more congressmen, 3 more senators, and what else do we get? You get a senator. You get a senator.
No, you only had 2 senators. That does
Okay.
not change. Okay, 2.
But we're at 100%. I'm just saying now we
No,
got
but even at 100%, it's
Okay.
only 2 per state, 2 senators.
Okay.
That's it.
All right.
She knows that.
But we're gonna break the all right. What did we if the
Segue.
numbers what our districts and are really, really spread out. Mrs. Patel, if we were to get 100%, how would that impact our representation if we were to come back with 100% in all of our urban cities here in Essex County, particularly, and Passaic County, are more densely populated cities. And then also, I had another question, but I just lost my train of thought. But go ahead if you want. The answer, is Ms. Patel there? Can she hear us? Hanel?
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, yes. Okay. Yes.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm glad
Welcome
to be
back.
here.
Welcome
Thank
back.
Thank you so much. Actually, before I start, I don't know. I've been on the show. I don't know if so I don't think it's been acknowledged, but we have some breaking news and some sad news. Justice Ginsburg passed away.
Oh,
no. Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Wow.
She's been fighting that cancer
Oh,
for a long time. Very
Wow.
valiant. We gotta go. We gotta get him out of here because you know where that's going.
Yeah.
Gotta go.
well, let's not even talk about him. Let's talk about my girl Ruth.
Yeah. She was good.
her. What was that quote? She said, we shouldn't be swayed by the weather of the day, but by the climate. Oh, no, she has a quote. Oh, Ruth. Oh my God.
This is it's. I mean, it's really heartbreaking for this. I mean, the country. She's just been as a justice, but even before then, she just has a really remarkable career and
Yes.
what she's done for civil rights, for women's rights around the country. So I
She
thought
was trying to hold on, though. You know that, right?
Yeah, she was.
She was trying
Well,
to hold on.
she
sure
was.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
And let us take a lesson from that, because we all have to do our part. And oh my gosh, yes,
Yeah.
But see, that's what I was talking about earlier, right? When I was saying that Donald Trump and the senators are busy appointing them judges under 50, right?
Gotta go. Mhm.
And because they understand that these young, racist white boys are gonna be here, right? When they're dead and gone, because most of them senators are already in their 80s, right? And so now for us to lose Ginsburg, and he's gonna do everything he can to get that deck stacked, right? So that's why he's got to go in November. But he's gonna try to do that even if he loses. And remember, they didn't give Obama an opportunity to pick who he wanted. Remember that?
Yeah.
And most explicit, you're not getting anyone. Most explicit when they did that.
I think it is. The part about Justice Ginsburg passing away is it's something we need to. We should acknowledge and discuss, and especially her legacy. But yes, as is being discussed right now, it is in fact. It just shines a light on why we need to do everything we can to vote. Elections matter.
Yes.
Every single election matters, and some more than others. But no, it's every single election matters because it affects our lives, but it affects it in more ways than we even think, right? So, Donald Trump winning in 2016 meant it changed the makeup of the court. It did that. Every Senate race in the country, including here in New Jersey, affects the makeup of the courts. And we don't always necessarily go to the voting booth with that in mind. But the courts are just so fundamental. They determine so much. Voting rights, they determine voting rights in so many ways in this country on the impact we've seen on Shelby v. Holder in 2013, which gutted the Voting Rights Act. It was determined by the U.S. Supreme Court. These things matter, and sometimes we feel a little helpless, a little especially with things happening in Washington. It feels like it's beyond our control. But the thing is that we do have some level of control of that. The one power we have is our vote. So
Right.
You have to take advantage of it. You have to do it. You just and you got to make sure everyone is voting. And I say this because there are a lot of people. We're in this election. It is election season, and it is everywhere. You can't go a day without hearing about this election. This is not like the local elections where often we don't even realize they're happening, and we should. They're incredibly important to our lives as well. But this coming up in November is just all encompassing in terms of in terms of the narrative. And yet, we get questions all the time. I talk to people all the time who are just like, are we sure it's I don't know about voting. I don't know if it really makes a difference. I don't know if my vote matters. I don't know if I care enough. And I think of course it does. It affects everything. It affects every part of
Hanel,
it.
and Hanel, to the point where you said we all can do something. Today is the beginning of Rosh Hashanah, Justice Ginsburg was Jewish. I'm trying to get the words and keep my mouth, but just to know if we've kind of followed her life and the challenges she had. Here was her husband got sick. She went to class for both of them, and they kind of tell a story and prevailed, and they both graduated. And then she couldn't she could not get a job at a law firm because of the time as well, of women working, and they were intimidated or whatever the situation may be. But then her not being able to get a job, but then she becomes a professor at Rutgers, and her husband, who was a tax attorney, and she was able to through that case. The first case, was that the first case she argued, was actually at the Supreme Court. So she didn't practice, and then she actually argued the case that changed the tax law. Wasn't that the situation, Hanel?
I don't know if it was her first case, but yes, she did, and it was about how the uneven, but the application of the way the tax law was written was sexist.
Right.
And she won, and she was right, and she won, and this is where we are. She spent some time in New Jersey. She was a professor at Rutgers Law School.
Yeah.
She started the Women's Rights Law Reporter there. She went up to continue her career, so she does have some ties here. So it's a big deal. Sorry. I know you asked. I came on and you asked me.
No. Listen, we can stay. And Patricia, can you stay with us, Patricia? Okay, and as we begin, but just as we're looking, and we have all of these intersections, and people are challenged, but here was a woman who, in the midst of challenges, she did some great things and went on to be a Supreme Court justice. And thanks, Patricia, because she put up the quote that she used when she was testifying before the Senate to be a Supreme Court justice, and she said a court ought not be affected by the weather of the day, but will be by the climate of the era. And then she goes on to speak that that the women's right movement, it made a way for her to move. So where at this point in her life she could not get a place as an attorney in a law firm, but then how we go and moving through the women's rights and feminism and everything, she went on to be a Supreme Court justice. So I just think that as we were saying with Mayor Baraka, that people, when they have these I'm not inspired by this person or whatever, but you get out and vote, because you're not only voting for yourself, you're voting for the next 4 years. And just think about, I was listening to talking about how many judges that Trump has put in, and he's putting in 4 judges. These are lifetime appointments, and he's putting them in at age 40. So if they live out, let's say Justice Ginsburg is 87 at her passing. So you're talking about 47 years that somebody may sit on a bench. They're very, some of the judges, most of the judges I think that he's appointed, they're very inexperienced. And he's just putting them in places that can turn around so many laws that we have worked so hard to move forward a progressive agenda. So people have to get out and participate and just do what you can, where you can, little by little. And she fought the fight. You see her doing push-ups and things like that, and her talking about she exercised every morning. She was very purpose in sitting in that seat because she didn't want him to have the opportunity to have this Supreme Court so unbalanced.
So now let's make it plain. How do we vote in New Jersey in this unprecedented time?
Absolutely.
Make sure we protect our vote when we do.
And the question I would say you was transcending in the impact of the census on voting as well. That's what we would transition in. And that Patricia said you would speak about that. I'm sorry.
I can to the here. One sec. I'm going to put a link here. We can share and we can talk about that a little bit about how to vote in New Jersey this for November. So let me start with that. Census and voting, great question. So the census, and I know Patricia touched on this a little bit. The census is so massively important, right? There are billions and billions of federal funds on the line here, money that our communities absolutely need, but also it affects our representation. So what happens is all of our redistricting, all of our districts, we always say this, right? Like we have representatives. What's a we're a republic. That's a representative democracy. The idea is we elect people who will make decisions, right? But who are we electing and how are those districts drawn? Who gets to vote with us? Like, where are we drawing those lines, right? That's what matters. And it comes about in a number of ways, right? So you have for Congress, for our state legislature, even some local places, we redraw every 10 years to make sure that the districts have about the same population. That's the idea of it, right? People move all over the place within a given 10-year given 10-year time period. So the idea is that, if we never change district sizes, you go ahead 50 years and you'll have one district that has like 10 times the people as another one does. And that's not quite fair. So we redraw these districts. So we redraw the lines for Congress based on our census count. We redraw the lines for our legislature, our state legislature. And in Congress, it's particularly, it's both are incredibly important, but for Congress, there's a added element here. We have a set number of seats in the House of Representatives, and a set number of electoral votes in the Electoral College. And I'll take a second and say, if you don't know, Electoral College is what actually decides who becomes president of the United States. We have a set number that is by federal law, not constitutional, but federal law. We have those. And what we do is every 10 years, we figure out the population of the country and then divide accordingly. Going that the minimum number is everyone gets at least one member of the House, at least one vote in the electoral, three, one member of the House, 2 members of the Senate, 3 votes in the Electoral College, and we go up from there. So it matters our population as a proportion of the other states. So we might be looking around and go, hey, we have a higher population this year, right now than we did 10 years ago. True, but if our population didn't grow to the extent a lot of other states did, then you can still lose a seat. So and similarly, if we don't count everybody, you can still put ourselves at risk, right? Because it doesn't matter what we look around and see. It matters what comes down in the number. It comes out in the numbers, right? Like we are doing a head count of the entire country right now. That is how you have to look at it. It is a head count. And if someone's not in the room, if someone's not being there, we're just not counting them. That's what comes down to. That's what it comes down to. And you can't go, oh, they were here 5 minutes ago. Trust me, they're here. If they are not getting counted, we are not having those numbers represented. So when the math totals up, where are we standing is we have to look at it. So yes, last 10 years ago, we lost a seat in Congress. As Patricia said, it would have been useful to have a little more than 12 in Congress, in the House this year when we needed some bills passed. We lost an electoral vote. New Jersey lost an electoral vote. We had a little bit more say on who a determining president 10 years ago than we did now. That's a reality we are in. Since 1990, we've lost 2 seats. So we need to make sure we're not losing anymore. And the way to do that is counting everybody. You have to count everybody. So that's why the census is incredibly important in terms of our representation. So please count, do what you can, take the census if you haven't already, encourage everyone to take the census, and encourage them all to register and actually go out and vote. Everything is on the line. Like it's just every part of your life is always on the ballot, always in basically every election. But I think in this one, sometimes I think it's a little bit more apparent in a lot of ways how much is on the line. So if you can, please encourage everyone to vote. And you can't just say, please register and go vote. We have a responsibility to make sure people have access to the ballot. that people know how to vote this year. You always need a voting plan. You always need one. You need to be able to make sure you are going to go out and vote. And I say this, I work at the Institute for Social Justice. I am so honored to be able to work there, work with Patricia and so many great people. And we are working to make sure that everyone has voting rights, that that there aren't needless barriers and restrictions and in place, that this is what we do. We care so deeply about it. But at the end of the day, and I always say this, your vote, you have to make sure, like, the one person who has to be on top of your vote is you. You got to make sure you take responsibility for making sure that you are going to vote, that you have a plan to vote, and that you don't let anybody stop you from voting. And that is just something you have to take on yourself, for yourself. Got to do it for others too, but you have to make sure your vote, you are getting that ballot counted. And so how do you do that for November? That is a great question when we have an election that is basically unlike one we've ever had in this era of COVID. So we have this image up. It is on our website. If anyone wants to go on njisj.org/vote, you can find a lot of information about the election for November. So we encourage you to go on. You might have some questions about it. It kind of lays out as much as we can everything out there. You're also welcome to email vote@njisj.org if you have any questions. We're happy to answer them or direct you to where you can go to answer them. But please reach out. I'll go over how this is going to work. So for November, every active registered voter will be sent a vote-by-mail ballot to your home. You do not have to apply. It is going to come. An active registered voter. Now,
can you pause right there?
Yes.
Because people are a little confused. People are asking for absentee ballots. People are sending that request in. So say that a little differently.
Let me say this differently. Okay, to back up a little bit. We've been saying this is, think of November, this is a paper ballot election. Just about everybody is going to be voting by a paper ballot. What does that mean? So, and there are 5 ways to vote through paper ballot. What does that mean? The first way, every active registered voter in the state is going to be mailed a vote-by-mail ballot. What does that mean? Now, you may have heard the word absentee ballot, vote-by-mail ballot. I know it's all over the place. Everyone's talking about that, what the difference is from the president down. Everyone's making it, at the end of the day, in New Jersey, it's the exact same thing. An absentee ballot, we don't use that term anymore. By law, it's just a vote-by-mail ballot. We used to use absentee, it was law. The law, it is a vote-by-mail ballot. That is the language we use in New Jersey. There is no difference. Okay. So it is a vote-by-mail ballot, absentee ballot, just assume they're the same for New Jersey. Other states have it a little bit differently, but I'm just going to assume everyone listening is New Jersey. Yes. Assume it's the same and keep going, okay? Now, do you need to apply? Do you need to do something? Now, if you are an active registered voter, you do not need to apply for one. You do not need to send one in or request a ballot or request one. You do not, generally. How do you know if you're an active registered voter? Great question. You can check your status right now. You can go on the Division of Elections website. There's a link to it on our website if you want to go to it, or you can go on you can Google New Jersey Division of Election. There is a link. You can check your status. Make sure you're registered. Make sure you're active. What does it mean that you're active? I know some people have had questions. Basically, you're inactive if they sent mailers to your house that came back undeliverable. That's the idea is people move and they don't actually tell the county that they've moved, so you need to take me off the rolls. So that's the idea for it. If you voted recently, you're active. That's how it is. Like if you voted in July, if you voted last November, you're likely to be on the active list, but you should check anyway, just in case. Like I said, always make sure you are responsible for your vote. So if the ballot gets sent to you, vote by mail ballot is sent to you, what do? You can go fill it out, put it in the mail, USPS box. You can go and put it, mail it right there. It is going to have prepaid postage. So just put it there. If you are going to use this option, please, please, please do it as early as possible. That should be part of your voting plan. If you were going to put it in the mail, as soon as you get your ballot, read through it, read it carefully, vote, take your time, but then put it in the mail as soon as possible. Don't hold on, say that the election's actually November 3rd. If I wait a little bit, it's okay. We saw a lot of ballots rejected in July that just got there too late. And that's just an unfortunate reality. There were mail delays. Now, if your ballot is postmarked by November 3rd and received until a week after November 10th, it is going to count.
Now, I'm sorry, I'm gonna pause you right there.
No worries.
Because if it's the barcode envelope, they don't postmark those.
Good question. So that is why you want to absolutely mail it as soon as possible, so they definitely get it in time. If it's not postmarked, now there's been a lot of conversations with USPS from the state, from counties, everybody to go, please postmark because of this importance. So they're likely going to start postmarking a lot of them. However, yes, often they sometimes don't. If they are going to count ballots received within 48 hours of election day if they don't have a postmark. Because of the delay, they were going to be sent before election day, but at the very least by election day, if they're received within that 48 hours, they will count them. But you don't want to risk it, right? So if you get your ballot put in the mail early, if you're going to take that option, or hey, use one of the other options. So you don't have to rely on the post office. You do not have to. I'm going to stress this again. Once you get your ballot, you do not have to rely on USPS. If you have any concerns about the mail, there are other ways to make sure your vote counts. So option number 2, you can use a secure Dropbox. What is that? So there's a little image on it on the screen right now. If you go on our website, you'll see them. If you Google them, you'll see them. They're available. They basically look like very large mailboxes. And they say secure Dropbox. They look basically the same all over the state. They just have a different county name on them. So if you're in Essex County, they're going to say Essex County. If you're in Hudson, it'll say Hudson, Passaic, Middlesex, whatever. It'll have that. Those secure Dropboxes are under the control of the county itself. Mm-hmm. So they have them placed there. They're under video surveillance all day, so they are secure. They're accessible. You put your mail, if you drop off your ballot there, put it into that Dropbox, the county comes and picks up the ballots themselves. So basically, you are voting by mail by cutting out USPS, right? And listen, I hate doing it because I think USPS is amazing. I have so much sympathy for them. They have such an incredible responsibility and are so under-resourced. So I'm not trying to disparage them in any way. However, the reality is we live here. If you have any concern about delays in the mail, you got to make sure your vote counts. So use a Dropbox if you can. They are going to be all over the state. Every county is going to have a number of them. You just have to. There's a list on the Division of Elections website. You can find a link from us. There's going to be one in Irvington, one in the city of Orange. There's going to be a couple in Newark we know of. They're in a lot of places. You can use any secure Dropbox in your county. It has to be one in your county though. So if you happen to work in a different county and you're like, oh, I'll just drop it off in the Dropbox that's near my work, don't do it. Do it. Use a Dropbox in your county. Any of the ones in your county.
Wait, pause. I'm sorry. That's a big point. We have to put that on. So I'm in Essex County, and if I work in Jersey City and I go to work, do not drop that ballot in Jersey City.
Do not do that.
and tell me why. Is it because it may not get back to Essex County, or it disqualifies it?
No, because it probably won't get back to Jersey City. I think that yeah, but that's the issue. Like I said, your county is the one in charge of it, right? So if your county is in charge of it, the county is the one who counts your ballots too. The county, all our elections are run by the county. So when they pick up your ballots in Jersey City, it's going to the Hudson County Board of Elections office. They're sifting through them. Their priority is counting ballots. Their priority is not getting your ballot to Essex County. They're working on that. So you can't rely on that. You know what I mean? It's not that you did it wrong, but there's just no guarantee it'll get there or anything like that. So you need to use the one in your own county. It is incredibly important. So that is the second way you can vote. There are third ways to, the third way you can do is you can go to your county yourself. Like I said, the Board of Election is the one who comes and gets them. You can go and drop it off there directly. Basically, cut out all the other process and go to the source and hey, this is my ballot. There you go. You're the one who's going to count it. They are open generally just about every day. They're going to be open on weekends closer to the election. You just have to go drop it off, including up on election day. You can go until 8 p.m. You can go drop it off there.
Now, we got to stop you there, because I remember the last time you were on with us, you told us that you don't have to show ID and all of that, and that's something that I went through, and I was very angry about it. So when you go to your county office, what should happen and what should not happen?
Great question. Now, it depends on exactly the situation you're going in. If you are going to just drop it off, it is your ballot. You can put it there and you're done, right? They shouldn't be asking you for your ID, anything like that. We do not need that as long as you're a registered voter or you're not being flagged for an issue. I will say this. If you are a new voter, if you're newly registered and they couldn't verify your ID, they couldn't verify you, and it happens sometimes, right? Like if you fill it out by hand, and I don't know, they can't read your handwriting when you put in your driver's license number or your social security last 4 digits, they might not be able to verify it. They will flag that for the list, and and if you went in person, for example, you might have to show ID the first time. It is only the first time. You don't have to do it every time. Once they verify you, you're good. However, one thing is, if you are a bearer, what does it mean to be a bearer? Great question. If, for example, let's just say you have all of these ballots at home, and you decide you take your spouse's ballot or your kid's ballot, whatever, your mom's ballot. You decide, listen, it's completely normal. It's like,
I'm sorry, I'm sorry. We trying to just get real life situations, but that right there was a big one down at the county. I'm in the house. We're all leaving. We're all excited about voting. Right. I'm gonna grab my husband's ballot and my daughter's ballot, and I'm gonna take them all. I'm taking them right down to the Board of Elections.
Make sure.
What happens from there?
Great question. Now, first off, if you do that, you are a bearer. Okay, there's an actual term for it. You are a bearer for this person's ballot, and there is a section on that vote by mail envelope that you got to fill out.
That's my husband. That's my husband. What's the problem?
Fine. Okay, so if your husband's taking your ballot, he has to fill out on your ballot. There's a section that says who's the bearer for this. He has to fill it out. Important note here. You can only be a bearer for 3 people. 3 people, there's a limit. And I know that feels like, oh, that should be okay. But I know sometimes, right? Like if you have 4, you might have like 5 or 6 people in your house, and you can't take all of them. You cannot. You can't just lump them together, because it will disqualify them. So you have to be 3 of them. If you go to the county and drop it off there, you have to sign the bearer book, and they might ask you to verify that. That is sometimes what happens. So you might be asked for ID or something, and that sometimes happens if you're going as a bearer. However, if you're just dropping off your own, they shouldn't. If they do, that is an issue, and you should reach out to someone.
And real quick, so if you get there, and just because there's no cure for that, so if I got there with my ballot, because we're gonna all vote together as a family, and I got 6 ballots in my hand, and once I get to that desk, they're gonna say, is there a cure for that? Will they let me go out and call my family and split it up?
I mean, theoretically, like you can go, they can say, hey, don't take it. You can take it back, and someone else can come, that actual person can come vote for it, come drop it off. But it can get confusing. They might just take it, the person who does it, and it might create issues. Or, hey, if you wait till the last day, there might not be enough time. So you want to start doing, this is why you need to plan. You need to do it early, and you need to make sure you're being really careful about these instructions. One thing I want to flag as we go on to the next part of this, because you do have a 4th option. If you want to go to vote, right? We covered 3. Put it in the mailbox. Put it in a second. You can use a secure Dropbox. 3rd, you can go in person to the county. Or 4, you can take your vote by mail ballot and drop it off at your polling location on election day. Every municipality, every town in the state will have at least 1 polling place open. A lot of them will have more than that. It might be the one you're used to. It might not be. Some of them had to be consolidated or closed because of the size and COVID, social distancing restrictions. You can check what your polling place is online. There's a polling place locator on the Division of Elections website. They're going to mail you a notice, but if you want to be sure, just check. It'll be up within a few days. They've been finalizing the list of polling places this week. You can drop off for November. That is number 4. You can drop off your vote by mail ballot at your polling place, right? You can just go, hey, here's my ballot. You go, you can do that. Here's the one important thing I want to stress here. You can only drop off your own if you're going to a polling place. You cannot drop off someone else's. Even as a bearer, they will only accept yours at a polling place. So if you're going to
be a bearer at the county seat, if you're going to your county office,
county seat, or the secure drop box.
Okay.
If you're using secure drop box or even USPS, you can be a bearer. You just have to fill out the section. But if you're using the polling place, you can only take your own. So if you're going to use that option, and you might want to, that's fair. You got to make sure it's a time where everybody in your family is getting in your car with you, and you're going as a family to the polling place. It's a family activity. Exactly. Got to go. And the 5th way to vote, relatedly, is you can vote in person at your polling place. You can do it. I know there's been a lot of talk. Hey, is there an in-person option? What if I want to vote? Yes, you can. You can vote in person. However, again, it is a paper ballot election. That means you are going to, unless you need an accommodation under the ADA because you have a disability, if you do certify that, and they will let you vote by machine. But unless you're in that position, you are going to be voting by a paper provisional ballot. Let me be clear about this. I know there's been a lot of questions and confusions about what that means. It is a ballot. It is a paper ballot. You're filling it out. They are not, you will have privacy to do that. I mean, they're supposed to set up. There are some pictures of how they're going to set up these locations. The state has provided guidance, so you can see you can do that. It's not like someone's watching you. Your vote is still anonymous. Also, it does count. I know there's all of these rumors happening that, provisional ballots, they don't count. They only count if the race is close. That's just not true. It counts. Here's why we have this as a policy. We have this as a policy it's actually a security measure. What happens is that when it gets to the county, like I said, the county is counting all the ballots. They count the vote by mail ballots first. Then they count the provisional ballots to make sure that no one's voting twice. It is literally done one after the other, so that to ensure as a security measure. We keep hearing about, oh, how is this safe, all of that. This is actually one of the ways we are making this a safe democratic process. So they still count them. It is going to be part of this of your vote will count. So if you need to vote in person, go ahead and do that. And there might be reasons you need to. Maybe you need some help. Maybe you have some questions. Maybe you don't, for whatever reason, you don't get your ballot in the mail. Maybe you had to change where you're living because of COVID. You're sheltering somewhere else, and you need to go in person to where you usually vote. That's fine. To your polling place where you're registered. That's fine. You have that option. Please do not think you can't vote in person. You can. I want to stress a couple of things here. I mentioned register to vote. Absolutely do that. We now have, in New Jersey, this online voter registration. It is a game changer. It really, really, really is a fantastic tool, accessible. You can register using it on your phone, on a tablet, on a computer. Just use it and register to vote. You can do it right now. It is available. You can. There's a link on our website. There's a link on the state's website. I'm sure they're going to put it up right here in a minute on the screen. Register to vote. Make sure and tell anybody who has a question to register. Also, and let me point this out, you should also use it if you need to update your address. Mm-hmm. I stress this because I know there's been a lot of people who've had housing changes, address changes in the last few months because of COVID. For whatever reason, right? There's been a lot of reasons for it. There's a lot of people who are unfortunately housing insecure right now. You can use this to update your address, and you should do it as soon as possible so that it's processed in time for that there's no delays in you getting your vote by mail ballot. They will do it. They will, as long as voter registration deadline is October 13th, do all of this before then. You got to register, update your address before then. They will send you a ballot after, but you know, with mail delays, you want to be you want to be sure. Do it as early as possible. Do it now. Relatedly, if you happen to be someone who, you know, if you're registered one place, but you're right now living somewhere else, not that you've moved, but you're just right now somewhere else. Say, for example, you're a college student. You're a college student who is registered by your college, but now your college is remote and you're staying at home or you're staying somewhere else. What do? Because they're going to mail you your ballot at your college, and the college is not legally allowed to send that to you. So what you need to do is you have one of two options. You can either update your registration and say, I am now registered here. Do that now before October 13th. Or if you want to stay registered where you are currently registered, you can have the ballot sent to you. But in order to do that, you have to apply for a vote by mail ballot. This is the one time that you actually do need to request or apply for that ballot. Put in the application's available online, or you can go to your county. You can go put that in and say, hey, I am registered here. I need you to send me my ballot here. That is possible. That is the whole idea of why this is like an absentee ballot. You are absent from where you usually are. That is the entire idea. But make sure you do that. Again, you have to make sure you have a voting plan, that you are ensuring that you have an entire thing ready to go, that your ballot will count. So this is all how to vote for November. Do that. I want to flag a couple of things for this. We saw this in July. One, when you are filling out your ballot, please.
I got a question
Okay.
before you go on.
Yeah.
So the question I wanted to ask you, so you can register online,
No.
but can you vote online?
We do not have the ability. We do not vote online. We don't have that we don't have that anywhere in the country, really, not in the same way. Like, so no, you cannot vote online. You can only register to vote online. So you got to
check your registration online.
I'm sorry?
Can you check your registration online?
Yes, you can. There is a place to check your registration.
That you have not been purged, to make sure you have your address right. They had me at a P.O. box that I have not used in over 25 years. And I voted every election.
It was not a pleasant day at the office when I went in there. You absolutely need to check your registration status. That should be the first thing you do. That is the first part of your voting plan. Make sure you're registered, everything's in place. Then you figure out how you're going to vote, and then you go do it. That has to be part of this process. Make sure you are registered where you need to be registered. Let me explain. When you are filling out your ballot, I cannot stress this enough. Please, please, please read directions carefully. Read them like 3 or 4 times if you have to. Read the instructions carefully. Fill it out. If you mess up, and hey, it happens. Like, you might just write this something incorrectly. You might detach a part you shouldn't detach. Let me stress this again. In your ballot, if it's the vote by mail ballot has a part that is called the certificate. It can be detached. There is like a striation that lets you detach. You cannot detach it. That is for the county. Do not detach it. Do not detach it. There were there were so many ballots in the primary that were rejected because they came in with a missing certificate. That is just an incomplete ballot. They cannot do anything with it. So please do not detach that. Read your directions carefully, fill it out. If you have any questions, call your county. There are hotlines. Call them, ask carefully. Do not worry. There are no stupid questions on this. Be really careful. County clerks put out some videos before the primary about how to walk you through it. They were great. I think they're all planning. Most of them are planning to do another one very soon. Use it. Follow along. Go, hey, this is my county. This is how I'm going to vote. Follow those directions. If you do mess up, and it happens, no worries. You call and get a replacement ballot. You tell them, I need a replacement ballot. They will send you one. Or hey, go vote in person. Do not, you know what I mean? That happened. You can go vote in person. That is your backup plan. But be really careful about this. Next part of that.
And before you go on, today, one of the things that we do when we don't know what to do, we go to YouTube College. So most county clerks do have a page on YouTube College on how to do your vote by mail. So that is.
But you can also, but Don, I want to ask her, you can also
Yeah.
track
Yes.
your ballot, can't you?
So there
make
Oh,
sure
that
that
is
your vote
up and
counts.
running. Okay. Oh.
Yeah, so there is a website here. It's on the Division of Elections website that you can track your ballot. You have to. There is a public access website. All you have to do is create an account, and you can once it's created, there's a section that says mail-in ballot, provisional, whatever. You go to it, and they will. You can see the status of your ballot, so whether it's received or not, which is incredibly important for us to know, and after the election, whether it was accepted or rejected. Hopefully for everyone, accepted. Now, I want to stress a couple of things on this. The website, when you register for the account, they're going to ask you to use the last 4 digits of your social security number, your driver's license number, or your voter number. Now, that's the same type of thing that's on the registration form. So, when I registered, put in my last 4 digits social security number, I was able to do it. If for some reason you do that and it kind of goes, no, like we can't find a record, try your driver's license number. I'm sorry, and I put this. There is a chance it'll still say no record, no record. That doesn't mean you're not a registered voter. There's a whole other site to make. There's a similar link on the Division of Elections website to make sure you are registered. The issue with this tracker is that it's not a glitch. It's just connected to your voter file. And depending on the year you registered, so in particular, if you registered, say, 20, 25 years ago, you might not have yet to use the last 4 digits of your social security number or your driver's license number to register to vote. Those are newer things. Those are 21st century things that we are required to add in. If that happens, it doesn't mean you're like out of luck. They can still track your ballot. You just have to call. There is a number to call, 1-877-NJ-VOTER, or you can call your county directly, and they will tell you the status of your ballot. I just want
Say
to
that a little slower. Say that a little slower.
1-877
1-877. Okay.
877
NJ Voter.
NJ Vote.
Voter. VOTER.
NJ Voter. Okay.
Yep. You can use that. You can call your county directly, and they will tell you the status of your ballot. Or you can use the online system. It does work and it's great, but I know that we've seen it. Some people, there's a lot of people who've tried, it doesn't work, and they're like, "What am I doing?" And they worry about that. And I just want to alleviate your concerns. That's just the only issue here. It really matters on what the information is on your voter file.
But is there any way to get around? Because anybody asking you for your social security information, is a turnoff, particularly for Black folks. So, right. Is there any way to get around that?
So it is only your last 4 digits of your social security number, not your whole.
No, I'm with you. Folks don't want to give you any part of that.
So it honestly depends on what you use to register to vote. So if you had your driver's license then and used that, you can use that here to create an account. That's the big thing here. If you don't want to use either, you call your county. That is the best way to make sure you can find out track your ballot. And I completely understand that you don't want to put in that information on the online. Call, use the phone number, the hotline. That's the best way to be able to track your ballot after. One other thing I want to flag for this. There is a part you're going to have to sign, whether you vote by mail, whether you vote by paper provisional. The paper ballots, you're going to have to sign your signature. That's fine, right? When it goes to the county, they check your signature with the signature in your voter file when you register to vote. That is how they know it's you voting, right? It is, again, a security feature. However, you might recognize there might be some concerns here. People's signatures change all the time. Yes. Maybe you're like, how do I know it actually matched? There is a process in place. We sued with our partners. We sued the state to make sure there was a process. It is now law. There was a process in July. There is one in November. I want everyone to be aware of it. If at the county level, when they look at your ballot, if they have any concern about your signature, if it's missing or if it doesn't seem like it matches, they're going to send you a cure form. It's called a cure form. And it basically says, hey, we had this issue. Can you verify this is your ballot, that you voted? You fill it out. You say, yep, that's me. I voted. Don't you dare reject it. Basically, you submit, and then you just have to send it back. You either you put in some ID information, either your driver's license, last four digits, your social security number, or some other form of ID that you might have to just verify it is me. Do not reject your ballot. You can either send that back by mail, by fax, by email, or in person. Do that as early as possible if that happens, and they will count that ballot. Again, it's all about making sure your ballot gets counted. So just as a security measure, just keep an eye on the mail, even after Election Day. Don't just assume that, election's over, I'm not getting anything important in the mail. This could come. But first step of that is just be careful when you sign. Just be careful.
So we got running out of time, but we got questions offline I got to ask, right? Mm-hmm. So on the Facebook page, there are two questions. One is that in New Jersey, absentee ballots are the same as vote by mail.
Yes.
Are the same.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Second, what is an active registered voter? What is the difference between a registered voter and an active registered voter?
Good question. So what it is you are put on.
You see the questions in front of you.
Yeah. So you are put on the inactive list if basically the county has sent you 2 election-related materials that are sent back non-deliverable or returned to sender. So for example, when they send you, in the past, they send sample ballots. They're not going to send a sample ballot this year. They'll send you a notice about, some where your polling place is and things like that. If that gets returned back, return to sender or non-deliverable, that twice, they'll put you on an inactive list. That still means you're a registered voter. It's not like you're purged from the rolls or anything. You just have to go and you can go in person to make sure to assure them that you are active, or you can go vote in person. You are still registered, but you won't be sent a vote by mail ballot. That's the one big issue. They won't automatically send it to you. You can apply for one, but they won't automatically send it to you. The idea is they put you on an inactive list is, let's be real. If you've moved in the past, did you ever notify, moved across the state or you moved to a different state? Did you ever notify the state or the county that you have now moved, so take me off the roll? It doesn't usually happen. Most of us don't do that. So the idea is that they're trying to make sure that when people are moving and things like that, they're keeping an active list going. That's the idea for it. But I do know that sometimes things happen, right? Like as a mail is returned when you do live there. It happens. It's all about the mail. There's always random hiccups with the mail. So you want to, first off, check your status. You can do that online. There is a link where you, the same place where you register, where you check whether you're a registered voter. When you put in your name, it tells you whether you're registered and then what your status is. As long as it says you're an active registered voter, you're good.
Now, to that point, I haven't received a ballot or a sample ballot even in several elections, right? What do you tell someone expecting their ballot by mail? They don't get it. What do they do, and how soon should they act in response?
Well, and before you start, she just there's no sample ballots coming out.
Yeah,
it's online.
Yeah, but I'm just giving out my.
I got you. But this year they didn't do the sample, so I just want.
Because we're getting the ballot. So what happens if you don't get it? And it happens sometimes, right? So one, I will say this: some of the counties have started sending out their ballots. They're working their way through the list. Everyone started announcing they are required to send them out by the first week of October. Just about all of them, I think, have said they're sending them out earlier. By the end of September, they're mailing them out. They want to get them to you. If you haven't received it by, I would say the second Monday, let me just give you a date. Let me pull up the calendar. If you haven't received it by, October
Indigenous Monday.
October 12th, certainly. I would check in, and it might just be, again, it could just be a mail delay. They mailed it out and you haven't received it yet.
So make it plain. Check it in.
maybe you can call your county and make sure that they sent it to you and ask when they sent it. There's a concern, you can get a replacement ballot. You can go in person and get one.
Go in person and get one. That's it. That's what I wanted to hear. That's what I wanted to hear. As you were.
Yeah, you can go get you can go in person to the county and get one there. They will give it to you. Or if it gets close to the election, even if you had always planned to vote by mail, using one of the first 3 options I discussed earlier, if you just don't get your vote by mail ballot in, towards the end of October, always keep in mind that you can go vote in person on November 3rd. That is a real option for you. You can go vote in person, vote by paper provisional. It counts, and that should be, regardless of how you want to vote, that should always be everyone's backup. That could be your first choice, that's fine, but it should be the backup. Go make sure your ballot counts. Go make sure you vote. And that's the hard deadline. November 3rd, if for whatever reason you didn't get your ballot, or whatever happened, right? Like you messed up the day before election day, and there's not enough time to get a replacement. Go vote in person. But that is what you do if for whatever reason there's a concern and you don't get your ballot in time. But do stay on top of it.
And let me ask you this: are you hearing whether they're going to be able to call who the winner is on November 3rd at the end of the night, or is that going to be like a week process?
Okay. Let me start by saying I think as a whole, that shouldn't be something anyone's really worried about. Like, what happens if no one gets called or anything? It's actually not uncommon. It's not uncommon at all for races to take a while to be called. It happens all the time, literally all the time. In 2018, we had a congressional seat down in NJ 3rd, so in South Jersey, Burlington County. That seat wasn't called. That race wasn't called for I think over a week. And everyone just patiently waited for the ballots to get counted, for the vote by mail to come in. They counted them, and Congressman Kim is still Congressman Kim. It was fine. Our democracy was okay. It happens all the time, and the races down the ballot. It happens. Just to be clear. So if there's ever an issue, and I don't just mean in November, in any election, it's fine. They're counting the ballots. Just be a little patient. The big thing is making sure the state, the counties are transparent about it. And they are usually. They're like, look, we're still counting. This is how many ballots are left.
Here's the problem we're having, right? In this particular election, right? People already know that Donald Trump has got all kind of mechanisms to suppress the vote, and 2, to try to cheat. I mean, he's got the Russians helping him. He got the Post General helping him, right? There are all kind of mechanisms that are in place. That's why we're asking, or that's why people are asking, how long is this going to take if they can't call it that night? Remember, the mayor said before you came on, Donald Trump is already predicting violence, right? Because he doesn't want to just leave office no matter what it is. And so that's why I'm saying, are we going to be able to know if his ass lost that race that night?
Okay,
so we'll be able to get that information. Because if we have to wait for a week, ain't no telling what the hell they going to do in a week.
So let me just start by talking about New Jersey, and then I'll talk about the broader race. So in terms of how long it'll take to call, like I said, it's relatively common for races to take a little while, especially closer races. When races aren't that close, even if we have our type of election where it's a paper ballot election, if it's quite clearly the margin is so clearly for one side, they'll call it earlier. Now, to be clear about who calls it, counties who are actually counting the ballots, they're never the ones who are like calling the race. They count until they're done, until they certify the race, which is usually about 2 or 3 weeks after the election. That's when the official count happens. But when people are watching this, the media, like the AP, other places, candidates, it depends on the margin. So let me give you a very recent example in New Jersey. In July, our primary election, we did a similar election to the one we're just about to have in November, right? Active registered Democrats and Republicans were sent automatically sent vote by mail ballots. Other people, if you were inactive or unaffiliated, you got an application, or you can go vote in person by paper provisional, similar to what we have now. In the Democratic Senate race, they called the race for Cory Booker really quickly by the end of election day because the margin he had won by was significant. On the Republican side, the Senate race took a little while to call. It took a few days because it was really close. You know, they're fine. They managed. They have a Senate candidate, Rick Mehta, but it took a little while because it was close. So now it comes to I know everyone is concerned about the presidential race and what happens. Look, the Institute is a nonpartisan organization. We do not take a side, but I'll put it this way.
We'll beat him up for you.
I'll put it this way. If the race isn't close between the presidential candidates, it is likely to be called in New Jersey pretty early, like by election day, maybe the day after. Like it's not going to drag on unless it's close. I won't say which one I think will be close, but I will say that, you know, in 2016, the margin was pretty significant, that Hillary Clinton had won pretty significantly in New Jersey.
Right, but the circumstances are totally different, right? I mean, people were able to go in and vote in person in 2016.
Right.
Here in 2020, people are not able to go and do that. Remember, Donald Trump is also telling people to go vote twice, right?
And let me clarify on two things on that. True, but again, in July, which had a similar election as we did, Cory Booker, the margin was so high that they did call it pretty quickly, right? So again, it depends on the margin. I think a lot of people can probably predict what they imagine the margin is going to be like for the presidential race in New Jersey. Now, do not vote twice. Do not vote twice. Please don't vote twice. It is illegal. If they catch you, that is going to be a problem. I don't care what the president says. He's not the one who's going to be on the line. You are as a voter. So do not do it. I want to stress that. Now,
let me.
Isn't that against the law?
I just wait before you, because we have a question from one of our persons on Facebook. Mrs. Ware says, "Do you sign the ballot if it is your ballot?" Section on the front bearer. I am confused about that section. In the past, I signed the bearer of my ballot. Now I know that you don't have to sign it, but I don't think in Essex County they don't take away. Like if I sign the bearer part because I'm bringing it in, they didn't take anything away, but you don't have to do it.
They don't generally disqualify you if you sign it, if it's yours. But no, you do not have to sign the bearer part for your own ballot. The bearer part comes into play if you are literally carrying someone else's ballot. And that is anybody else, including someone you like a family member that you live with, right? And that happens all the time with mail. You take your family member's mail with you, but you have to sign it because you are carrying you are bearing their ballot to be counted. So you only have to sign fill that out for someone else's, not your own. Mm-hmm. But so just as an
and one more question. When Zaid asked the question about if I didn't get my ballot, and Ed had mentioned about the tracking. When does the tracking begin? When it leaves the clerk's office? So if I didn't get my ballot, when does the tracking begin?
Yeah, it generally begins once you've sent it in. They'll have a thing that says received.
Okay, gotcha.
So it depending on how you vote again, right? Like if you use a Dropbox, that receive might come a little earlier than if you use the mail. But keep in mind, there's going to be a little bit of a delay. Like you can't just send it in and expect there to be an update an hour later. Give it a couple of days.
Okay, gotcha. But it starts from when you send it in. It doesn't start when it leaves.
No, you're tracking your ballot from you to the county, not the other way around.
And I got two questions. I know Ed needs to wind up. Voting and census. These are we have.
Bring it together. What happened? Where'd she go?
Very, very important. Two things that people need to do within the next couple of days. So the voting. Is there a model city that you have out there that they generally vote at 100%? And Patricia, do you have any cities out there that at 100% with census? And closing, the voting at the Prudential Center. So will that only be on the 3rd, or will there be several days for the voting at the Prudential Center? And is that only for Newark residents, or is it for Essex County residents?
Some great questions.
Patricia, you want to answer the consensus one? That might be.
Sure. So there is no 100% city in New Jersey. There are some very high self-responding counties. I was just looking for a few right now. There's Burlington County is one, Somerset County is another. There are cities that are up in the 80 percentile. That's usually about the highest we see, at least at this point. So they're not 100%, but at that point they're pretty well off. That they're ready to, kind of understand
And
what they're.
Patricia, you said in New Jersey, is there 100% in anywhere? Is there 100? Nowhere. Okay.
No. Now, what there may be, and I have to look for it, but there may be 100% in perhaps a census tract where there's a certain number of blocks in a city that are all counted together based on their numbers. That's possible, but in terms of cities themselves, no. I have not seen anything that's reached 100%. We would have certainly celebrated them by now. So we do have some high ones in the 80s, in the mid 80s. Probably the one that's closest here to us, I think, in Essex County. I'm just looking at it quickly. I think Maplewood is extremely high.
How high is it?
That's one of the highest ones that I see right here. I'm pulling it up right now. That one looks like, oh, well, okay. It is high, but it's not as high as I thought. It's 77.8%. So that's in the range of 74 to 85%. That's one of the next buckets that's there. So I don't see one. I'm trying to stay in Essex County just to see if we can see anything. South Orange Village is at 78.5%. And this last one I'll pull here. And I think, I'm not sure if I'm in Essex at this point.
Milburn,
I think I'm in Union. Milburn is Essex.
Essex.
Yeah.
That's Essex still? Okay, so Milburn is the highest one. That's
what is Milburn at?
Wow. 82.2%.
And
that's the highest one. So you can put the 2 and 2 together in terms of who's where. And, we're sitting right next to someplace like Irvington. So there's Maplewood. It's not right next to it, but if you take Milburn and just head east a little bit through Maplewood and Newark Heights, and then you get to Irvington, is struggling. They're at 46.2%.
And the same, do we have any, what's the highest cities we have with the voter turnout? And the Prudential, do we know if it's going to be multi-days?
So I want to let me clarify something on the voter issue. So when we say 100%, one, there aren't any, but there are two issues here, right? One is, are all eligible people registered and voting? And two is, are registered voters voting? Right? Because when you say which one has a higher percentage, you might have towns where you have a fairly high number of registered voters who go out and vote, which is great, which is amazing. But that doesn't necessarily mean all eligible people are registered, right?
Gotcha.
There's two parts of that. So you want to make sure you're doing both. So that's sometimes about voter turnout. You have to be really careful about how we're looking at that. So you want to make sure it's eligible voters, and we're trying to get that higher. I don't think there's any that's 100%. And I'll say this, generally speaking, not always, but often you have higher turnout in a lot of the suburban areas. You have higher
Mhm.
turnout with older populations,
Mhm.
things like that. Now, some of it is people often say, like, there's a lot of the messaging is like, especially for young people, it's like, oh, young people don't care as much, things like that is often said. I think it's more that, and I mean that's sometimes part of it. People don't understand the importance of voting, but the bigger issues is that we put in a lot of obstacles to
Mhm.
voting. That was sometimes that we don't even recognize as obstacles, right? Like when we think
Mhm.
about older voters who always manage to vote, a lot of them are retired. They have the time.
Mhm.
Compared to a lot of people who are working sometimes 2 jobs. That's an obstacle, realistically, right? So there are things that are at play that we don't always appreciate. And then when you have more diverse areas like Newark, like Irvington, like the areas we're in, there are a lot of other aspects to it, right? Not only like we have a lot. When I say diverse, I mean there's a lot of people in our communities where English is a second language. They might be
Mhm.
they might be registered to vote. They might be able to, but they might not feel comfortable with the materials. Now they're required to, depending on which county you're in, they're required to send that to you in some of the languages, depending on the percentage of the population. But it might
Mhm.
be they might be speaking another language that they're not having, or maybe they're just not. They don't have. They don't appreciate. They don't feel comfortable enough with the material to do that. So those are real barriers. So there are reasons why in a lot of communities, in cities, in more diverse areas, that we have a lower turnout often.
Got
But
you. So as because we're down to the wire, and as
yeah,
we wind up
Prudential Center.
about the Prudential Center, and then get ready for our most important question: who is your favorite hip hop artist and or group?
All right, let me answer really quickly on the Prudential Center. Great question. Some of this I'm not aware. They're still clarifying certain things. It is going to be used as a voting center for election day on November 3rd. I'm not sure if they're using it as a county outpost for before that. It might be. I'll check. One thing is I have heard they are trying to get a drop box there by
Mhm.
Prudential Center. So you could always, and if that's there, you can, that would be available as soon as it's installed. So you can go there to drop off your ballot. So that's something and that is available much before election day.
Okay. And
All right.
your
Time.
favorite hip hop artist and or
She's
group?
been here before. They've been here
Yeah,
before.
we still ask.
You know what? I'm sticking to my answer, which you all laughed at me about. I said Beyonce, and I'm sticking to it.
All right. Okay, and Patricia.
This time, I'm going to say
Wow.
Okay.
A Tribe
All right.
Called
All
Quest.
right.
All right.
Well,
Thanks, y'all.
But I will say one song that I've been listening to a lot lately is "Keep Your Head Up." Not by Tribe Called Quest, but just every time that comes on, I like to just keep my head up. So that's kind of where I am. It's a lot different than when I
well,
visited
I
you
know
before.
Ed. I know before Ed gives the closing, Patricia and Hannah, if there's something that we need to know, and because we know these days, every day forward is a day closer to very important dates for the census and election. Please let us know if you need for us to get information out. Please keep us updated, Patricia, on the court case, if it's going to be extended or what happens. And if there's anything as the dynamics change with the election, if you need us to know if there's an expansion of certain things, please get in contact with us, text, whatever, so that we can get the information out, because it's a lot. And maybe, Ed, I don't know, maybe we can do actually a picture of the ballot and each thing in there, so we can have, I don't know if you have that at the Institute of Social Justice, so people can see everything that comes in the ballot and explain it. These are, people get really confused with the ballot. So
One last thing I wanted to flag. I put the link in there. We have a bill and we've heard there was some mention earlier. There are concerns. There is a bill that was introduced this week by Assemblywoman Reynolds Jackson and Assemblyman Benji Wimberly, and on the Senate side, Senator Turner. This would limit the presence of police at voting locations, the presence of law enforcement.
Very good.
So I put in a link here that you can use to email your representatives, to email the governor, to show your support, to get them to pass it. We're hoping that they will do this so that it's effective for November.
Excellent.
All right, we got to go.
Edward, I did want to say one thing. This is to Edward, well, everybody, but based on a comment that you were talking about in terms of the election results, and I put it in our little private chat, but I just want to say this publicly. We need to, as part of our voter education, when we're talking about vote by mail and how we're going to be voting this time, we also need to set expectations. Because we need to make sure people understand when you vote by mail, you have to be a little patient. It's not you might have something right away because of the margins, but in case you don't, that's not abnormal. We're not doing an electronic vote where it's going to necessarily be overnight. So that needs to be part of our conversation when we're telling people as you put your ballot in. Because if somebody can come in and actually put their ballot in on November 3rd, they still have to get that checked. So you want to make sure everybody gets counted. So we need to make sure we
We're thorough and
set that expectation.
Okay.
All right. Well, listen, we
Thank
thank you.
Much.
All right. We thank you. We only got 2 minutes before we close out this show. So we want to thank you all for coming. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Thank you.
All right. So listen, in the last few moments we want to talk about, of course, our other co-host who's not here, Jonathan Austin. Of course,
Yes.
everyone knows that his father went home to be with the Lord.
Yes.
And what an outstanding service. Did y'all get an opportunity to see the service?
No,
No, I was
we
in
have
the community. Yeah.
So I saw the service, and I got to tell you that John, his brother, his uncle, Annette. Well, Annette, she read the obituary.
Mm-hmm.
And told one story, of course, about her father teaching her how to drive and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But Jonathan, I mean, he did a theme talking about his father as this giant, and it was awesome. I thought he did an excellent job.
Yeah, remember the poem he posted that morning? He posted the poem, yeah.
And of course, he talked about the love story. You know what I mean?
Yes.
The fact that they had been
shared with us.
together for 60 years.
Great stuff. Yes.
And it was for the entire 60 years. It was just this incredible love story that they had. I mean, it was from beginning to end. I mean, it was an outstanding tribute and homegoing service to Mr. Austin. And so, of course, what John and I talked about is that he and Annette are going to come back on, and they're going to talk about their father's relationship, and then have, of course, Asia, yourself, Donna, and of course, I think Keisha, come in and talk about what happened with them back in the day, back when we were in the studio, the interview with Mr. and Mrs. Austin.
It was great.
So talk about that, because it was absolutely moving, and I thought it was an outstanding tribute to an incredible husband, an incredible father, and an incredible community person, and so it was just great. And with me, I enjoyed all of the stories that they told about Mr. Austin, because remember, information is what goes into your head. Stories are what go into your heart.
Right?
Wow. Okay.
And that's how we pass the culture.
Huh?
That's how we pass the culture. As African people, that's how we pass the culture.
And so all those stories, right? That's what made the homegoing service so beautiful. It was those stories that they were telling, right? Because all of them had some incredible stories about their father. And the interesting thing is that they could have easily read chapter 14 of Corinthians, the love chapter in the Bible, and that would have really identified Mr. Austin, because he was an incredible lover, not only of his wife, but of his children. And so it's also
do it all over again.
when you hear your sons talk about you in glowing ways, right? You don't often see sons talk about their father like that. And I thought that was amazing to me, to see that. And so it was just great. I wish you all had saw it so we could have a much more broader conversation. But I think the video is up there. I think you can go back and go through it, and I think you could probably see Austin, see Jonathan's, movie, a eulogy and tribute to his father based around that theme.
The link is on our Facebook page. It should go on this page too.
Okay. It's on the All Politics Are Local page?
No, it's on. As I have it on the People's Organization for Progress page.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's on APAL's page.
We can get it on this one.
And then take you to that link, what I mean?
Okay.
Then you can go and see it. And then, perhaps after you guys see it, when they come on, you all will be able to, engage in that conversation and hear Annette tell that story about, her learning how to drive, which I thought was really funny. And again, that's what homegoing should be, right?
That's right.
You should be able to tell these wonderful stories about, that person, so that people can see their life through, your lived experiences with them, right? And I think that's what it was. And one of the things you always learn when someone's teaching you public speaking, they always tell you that you become a good storyteller. I heard Les Brown say that one time. He said, your story can either make you rich or poor, right? And if you learn to be a good storyteller, you'll always be a very rich man, right? Because you tell those stories that people will listen to. And the reason why all good preachers who can tell stories save more people than other preachers who can't tell stories is because they know how to get you delivered through the story.
That's right.
So
your testimony is for such a time.
Right. So it was outstanding, and I can't wait for.
And let's say this too. Through all of this that Jonathan and Annette and their brother have been through, this is the first Friday that Jonathan missed. He's been a soldier right through this whole thing.
Yeah.
He's been a soldier.
And he was here, and he was here today.
Yeah, I don't doubt it.
He was still here today.
I don't doubt it. He was chiming in. I expected to see him. So I mean, he sold us through this whole thing with dignity and grace, and it's one of the reasons why we love it. We love it, right? And we love his family, right? We love it. That's why we ride the way we ride, right? On that note, several things. Let me just say, somebody mentioned Pac. This is the anniversary week of his dying from the violence that we still played with in our community, right? You mentioned Keisha. My child's birthday is today, and as somebody understands, one thing I love about this child, among so many things, that when you do the kind of stuff that we do, she understands the importance of self-care. She pulled herself away from work and really just did some self-care stuff today that was good for her, and it's important for all of us to learn. And I'm saying that self-critically because it's a mistake that I know I'm struggling with and that I'm trying to correct. And then finally, keeping it in the streets, Ademo and I, Larry and I, will be in New Brunswick tomorrow at a major rally that Mel Pittman is organizing for the benefit in solidarity with the family of George Floyd. George Floyd's brother Terrence will be at this particular rally at the Feaster Street Park in New Brunswick at 2:30. So we're carrying it on the work. The work is moving forward. Whole October 3rd, I mentioned that earlier. October 3rd, a major action here in Newark, a major get out the vote march and rally. The Trump must go. And down the road, October 22nd is a national day against police brutality. We're going to be turning it up here and trying to organize some actions in other cities in the state.
Exactly. What's that date for that march?
For the march for against Trump, October 3rd. Trump must go October 3rd.
October 3rd.
October 3rd, 12 noon, October 3rd.
And where's that going to be?
I think I don't have it in front of me. I think it's going to be at the Lincoln Monument.
Okay. And that's the People's Organization for Progress?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, we need to make sure we all there for that, bro.
We got to turn it up for that.
Yeah, we got to turn that out.
Yes,
And
sir.
next Thursday, all roads lead to Trenton. And as you know, Assemblywoman Timberlake is still trying to put through the bill, the housing bill, which has now been named the People's Bill, A4034. And they're all, there's going to be a caravan in Trenton next week, the 24th, to get the Senate to move forward on voting on it and voting it in favor of this bill and not gutting it.
Do we know why it's being held up?
They want to gut it. So we have to do the work. So we'll all be in Trenton next week.
Yeah, that's a
So-
caravan trend. That's important.
And,
So
I don't know what's with the Senate, man. They listen. That's another conversation we need to
That's another show.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And we need to get Timberlake back, and we need to get some marching orders to really go in there and put pressure on these people to get this done, because people are suffering.
Yes.
Yeah, we
And we already see, if nothing would have, if they didn't know, if they thought it was all a what if, we've seen exactly what she's trying to prevent going
That's right.
on in Houston. And it was horrendous when
Well,
those evictions.
It's happening here. You know, I mean, it's happening here. The thing is that it's not as loud. That's all. But
Mhm.
it,
It can get
so
bad.
listen, y'all, we've come to the end of the show. So of course I want to thank Mayor Baraka for coming through, doing his show. What an outstanding contribution he had tonight, y'all. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Good, yeah, good discussion. Always a good discussion.
He was putting it up as usual. I don't want to say putting it down because that's negative, right?
That's
I
right.
want to say he was putting it up for real. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I think that's what a lot of people in the conscious community want to hear from our brother, because that information is not only in that brother's head, that information is in his heart. Right?
That's right.
And
Mhm.
that's why he's able to communicate the way he is. Because
Stays with it.
just think about the
Stays
one thing. Think about the one thing that he said tonight, y'all. When he said that we've got to learn to talk to people, even those people that
That
we agree with.
is the key to
Yeah.
good community organizing and
Isn't that
move you from protest to power.
Right.
We need to be clear about that.
Yeah.
He actually, remember when he first mayor first got elected, that was one of the first things he said when he was a keynote speaker, and he said, we get into a room, we got 10 items, and I've said this before, we get to item number 3, and because we don't agree, everything falls apart instead of putting 3 aside and keep moving forward. So it was a dynamic conversation, and we can't forget DJ Rhino, machines,
Yeah, we gotta say big up to
Yeah.
Rhino. He was trying to get it to work, man. Sorry about that. That we didn't get his contribution for the show tonight.
Oh, no, we missed that.
Yeah.
And
Music.
while we're comfortable here, in our space doing the Zoom, and I don't know if we can look at the numbers. Are they different than when we're in the studio? But it's something about being in the studio when we be vibing and
Well, it's a different energy.
different people
yeah.
coming through and
Different
everything. Yeah.
It's a different kind of energy. But I can't wait till we get back, but we want to go back and we all want to be safe though.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, we don't want to lose anybody on this field, because trust me, Donald Trump trying to kill folk. You know what I mean?
Let me just say something in terms of connections, and how dynamic the show was in bringing people together. I know Professor Harris brought on, him and Zaid. He was like, I got to get with Zaid. And then I was down at a cookout for returning citizens. And if you remember, we had Ronaldo Chavez on, and they had people from Boston on, and they were talking about the abolition and people voting for, if I don't want to vote, I will vote for somebody who can't vote. And I was at the cookout, and it was like, yeah, Ronaldo Chavez, he's working on making sure that persons that don't want to vote here in Jersey can vote, for people who don't want to. And that connection was made right here on All Politics the Local. So we're doing great things, bringing people together and making the work go further just by connecting.
Right on to that.
No doubt about it. But I've also got to compliment y'all too. Y'all, especially you, Zaid. I've noticed your interviewing skills are elevated on the conscious level, brother.
Oh, I gotta go back with this. This is like a comeback for me.
Yeah. Because you know, I like it when you get amped on the black level, brother. You be
Yes,
holding
sir.
it back, and all of a sudden, hey Donna, then all of a sudden you get, you know, that's like that country thing. Watch out! I gotta let my mule go now. You know,
Look, hold my mule. But so let's sign off.
Zaid don't hold his mule when he gotta
That's
go.
right.
When he
But
gotta tell you something from a black perspective, Zaid let that mule go.
Well, Ed, if you can close us out, but if everybody can stay on after the closeout. For a
All right.
second.
Oh man,
And Zaid, also, man, don't forget to send me that email. All
I
right.
sent it to you.
Oh, okay. I gotta check. I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely sent it to you. Yeah.
But close the show down. He's not going nowhere. We
Okay.
gotta stay here for a second. You can.
All right, y'all. So we want to thank all of y'all for tuning in again. We want to thank Mayor Baraka. We want to thank, of course, Patricia Williamson.
Institute.
How
Very
do
good.
you pronounce that the other sister's name?
And
Patel.
all. Yeah.
So we want to thank Henal Patel. We thank all of them for being on. And then, of course, we want to say big up to our brother Jonathan and Bashir. All right. And we want to say a big God bless you to the Austin family. Let them know that we all are praying for them. And we can't wait until our brother Austin is back in the pocket next week.
And what about those magic fingers in the background?
Oh, yeah. And of course, we, you know, I mean, I know I tell him all the time quietly what a great job he's doing. But, you know, to all y'all who see what's going on graphically with this show, zooming in and zooming out and things popping up and all of that, when John Austin ain't handling it, you know, solo, then that means Mike is handling it. And, you know, he and Mike at the same time. But tonight, that brother did it all by himself. And so
That's right.
Thank you, son.
And what an awesome job you did making All Politics of Local look very good and very professional. We thank you, my brother.
Thank you. And again, we send out our love to the Ginsburg family and to the U.S. Sister held on. So we need to go do the work to make sure that the reason that she held on, that somebody replaces a young RBG replaces her. So.
All right. We'll see y'all next
Happy
week.
birthday, Keisha. Miss you, baby girl.
Happy birthday.
Keith.
Happy birthday.
All right, y'all. We'll see y'all next week.
All right.
Y'all